are back for the latest episode of the Auld Triangle, or as Sean Sheehan called it before we went on, the Owl Square, as he joins us here from the get-go, where we're going to take a look back at the year 2022 in Irish MMA. Myself, Andy and Quilcher here as always, and as I said, we're joined by Sean Sheehan to get us going today, as we will take a look back at everything. We'll have a few more guests coming along the way. Feel free to put some questions in. We'll answer them as best as we can. We'll try our best to get through the year, but we're going to get sidetracked left, right, and center here. We're going to have a couple of special guests coming on from the start, and already one that's joined us is Sean Sheehan today. How are you, Shawnee? Thanks for coming on. I know you're a bit hungover today after a session in Cork yesterday.
Sure, look, these things happen. What happens in Cork stays in Cork, I suppose. So yeah, it's great. Thanks for having me on. And fair, just to start off, I suppose, fair play to you. You've done a great job all year covering the sport and giving the local Irish side of the sport a great platform. And I think it's always something that's severe. Obviously, we've tried to do back from the days of Andrew and Graham coming through with the likes of the biggest fighter we've ever had in the history of the sport coming through, as well as many before and after him as amateurs and new pros. And the platform you've given him has been absolutely fantastic this year, obviously with the platform that has been built before it as well. And I hope all the fighters and the coaches and all are appreciative of that, because it's something you don't get anywhere else, like the dedicated coverage that you give to every single event, every single fighter, amateur and pro, is something you literally wouldn't get anywhere else on planet Earth. You would literally, what other website with the reach of Severe MMA is doing that and is willing to do that? So fair play to you for doing it and for coming on every couple of weeks and being dedicated to that craft and for doing a great job of it as well. It's not just doing it, you do a great job of it. So fair play to all three of you, doing an absolutely fantastic job.
We're just in it for the millions. We're in it for the millions. Our ivory towers.
Making all the big money.
That's it. Oh, that's it. No, it's been great. It's been great to get the podcast off the ground this year. And we've all kind of, it's something that we didn't really know what we wanted to kind of bring through, and we've slowly but surely developed it from, I'd say, if you go back and looked at episode 1, which started this time last year in January, what was it, Andy, 15th or something like that, way back at the start of the year, where we kind of figured it out as we went along, per se, but trying to do the best that we can. But no, the lads have been a great help to me as well, and look, it's called the Ould Triangle for a reason. Every one of us have as just as an important impact on Irish MMA. Obviously, for me, being away, I can't get out on the ground. Quilcha does some great work on the amateur side of things. Andy has been on the ground and doing some great interviews and stuff like that as well. So, I think it's been great, and I'm really looking forward to 2022. But like I said, we'll take a look back at 2022, not a look ahead to 2023 just yet. So, we're going to talk. I guess we can get started off before we have our first guest come on. We'll talk about the IMAFs at the start of last year. Maybe a little briefly, Quilcha, you can try and just take us through. Nadine Abbott-Bissett picked up the gold medal there. Kyo Sullivan picked up a junior flyweight medal, silver medal. Paul Buckley picked up the men's middleweight. Ava Cruz picked up the women's junior flyweight. So it was a pretty successful tournament overall for the Irish, wasn't it?
It was good now, yeah. Like it was a bit of a weird setting because you're coming back to events and like everything that was involved, it was like COVID was still a thing at the time. If you think about it now, you're going to a 3 arena, and Sean has his gripes at the 3 arena, but look, there's no tests and masks, nothing. Like it's just a free for all. But back then, like we were being tested on a daily basis, and it was just it was wild, and I don't want to ever have to experience that again, basically, because it was stressful to say the very least. And if you tested positive, you're stuck. But the tournament itself, once it got going, was class, and we didn't lose any Irish fighters to COVID, thank God. But Nadine takes the cake. Like
it was brilliant. I was a man down that time last year with COVID. I was stuck in Ireland. The Canadian government wouldn't let me back in, but it worked out perfectly because I got to see every fight. And me and Andy and Quilcha, we were watching all the fights as they were happening, and it was a juggernaut of fights. Like it was so hard to keep up, and we were like, did we miss this fight? Did we miss that fight? There was 3 cages, but IMAF did a great job in broadcasting them and getting all the fights out there. Little bit of hard. Thankfully, we had Quilcha on the ground over there who was able to tell us, yeah, this fight is coming up at this time and that fight is coming up at that time as well. But it was a great start to the year for Irish MMA and in general with the IMAF Sandy as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. And yeah, trying to jump between the cages and figure out which one where everyone was probably the most difficult part. And not used to. I'm old and a loser these days, so I don't stay up to watch the UFC live like you soldiers. But like when you're getting up to watch fights at 6 a.m., it's usually you're staying up. And this was you're actually getting up to start the day and watch it. But yeah, I thought that, like the obviously the highlight was Nadine taking gold. You know, a huge achievement for her to cap off her amateur career, and has obviously transitioned on to pro since then. But it was really the catalyst of a great year for Nadine. Obviously, the end was the last fight, and we'll hopefully chat to her later on. When she went pro, it didn't go according to plan, but her amateur career was a fantastic one, and yeah, a great moment for Ireland as well. You know, to have a fighter on the world stage, you know, taking gold like that for a small country, it's a good achievement.
Sean, look, you've been around the scene for a long time as well, and you've seen some talent come through. Like, but I think it's safe to say, we've talked about it time and time again on this podcast, I think the level that amateur MMA is at in Ireland right now is at a pinnacle, and has a ceiling to grow even further as well. And this is without legalization or regularization or anything like that as well. So I think that we're in a really exciting time, but also in another time where amateur MMA in Ireland will be in a position to grow further once all the regulations do eventually come in.
Yeah, it's an interesting time as well, because as Quilter said earlier, like coming back after the pandemic, there's a lot of people who are absolutely chomping at the bit to come back and fight and haven't fought in a long time. Now that probably lead to a bit of ring rust, but also probably lead to people coming out there like fighting their absolute hearts out. And a lot of it, I remember, I don't know, maybe one of you remember, I was talking to someone around in maybe the middle of the pandemic on an interview, and they were kind of saying to me like, there's been way more one-on-one training for like the pro team or maybe the high level amateurs than there had been beforehand, because you didn't have, your people just weekend warriors, or your people who were doing it to stay fit and stuff because they weren't allowed. And obviously there was an exemption for the higher level people, and they were able to get more training. And it was interesting because the Nationals this year was at the end of last year.
The Nationals
was a bit
in
off
February.
February, yeah. So obviously you'll get to them, but I was watching him like,
good segue.
Look, indeed, but like I know we've talked about it and you've talked about it as well. I think there was issues with him in terms of the amateur game and how it should be, maybe the rules and stuff around it. But in general, I think the level of that, I watched a good bit of it, and obviously he did a great job in commentary and stuff. It was pretty good, like, especially like the level of wrestling, and like Conor McCarthy was one that really stood out to me. I thought he was very, very good. You spoke about Nadine as well in the IMAFs there. Obviously, she has stood out as an amateur and looked really, really good. And you look at it coming through. It's always difficult because you see people coming through. I always talk about Valdrim Lubishani. I always thought this guy is destined to be a top fighter, and then just disappears off the face of the earth. Like, and you don't hear it from him for years. And I know Graham was talking about someone the other day as well, I think, But then other people, you might think like, oh, they have a bit of a not the greatest amateur record in the world, and then they go on and they do good things. Like, even look at Christian Leroy Duncan at the moment coming through. He lost a good few fights as an amateur, but it really helped him. And look where he is now. Or even Palahan lost a good few fights as an amateur and has had a really good pro career. So I think we're at a stage now, and I think Quilter does a good job of it, obviously being involved with IMAF and stuff as well, of showing the people coming through and how it's helping them. I'm very interested to see over the next 10 years even how big of an effect the IMAF has on people, and how successful the people who've come through the IMAF are going to be when they go to the pro ranks, whether it's into Cage Warriors or into Bellator and the UFC, because if it works out and if it keeps going and if it's turning into like a proven path to pro, I think it's a very, very interesting, and you'll see more and more people doing it all the time. And for Irish MMA, that's a good thing, because they have a head start in a lot of other countries where they took it, obviously with John Kavanagh being the head of the biggest gym in Ireland. He's obviously brought his gym towards the IMAF, so Ireland have a bit of a head start in some countries, I'd say. So that's, to me, I've talked about it a few times this year already, but that's a very interesting part of the amateur scene for me.
Yeah.
To be fair as well, like the vast majority of the gyms are signing up for it as well. Like, I know there's a couple of gyms who still aren't, but like when you've got almost everyone in the country going to these events and competing against each other, kind of just to be able to test each other on a national level, it can only improve your skill set, and you can kind of really see what you're made of on the Irish scene, and then you obviously take it further afield and go to the international competitions from there. So it'll be very interesting to see how it develops over the next few years as well. And like, to be fair, the setup was pretty solid for a first national championships. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, indeed it was. Like, and we have the nationals coming up again this year as well. And like, for a first, I think it was very successful. And it's important to give the fighters the platform to fight for the national titles and get that structure in there. And I think that they did a great job. And obviously, with anything, everything can improve. And I think they're going to come in with some new things this year, Quilcha, as well, for the national championships, a couple of different categories and other things like that as well. So they're showing that they are looking to improve and give more people opportunities. More categories, more weight classes are going to give more fighters platform to go and compete on these events.
Like the way they're doing it now with the whole, like, I like the provincials. I think that's going to be good now. Counties provinces like Connacht, or it's just like, who the hell is going to fight there? You're going to have straight finals, and like Leinster's obviously going to be the most competitive. Ulster to be all right, and then Munster to be decent. But it's all like, I like the idea of it. I don't know about the levels. Like, I do like it. I think it's early for that. The levels of certain amount of fights or experience and stuff. I think that's a little bit early because, I don't think the scene's big enough just yet. But I think it's the best idea moving forward. Like, it's basically how amateur boxing works in this country, really. Like, if you're a novice, intermediate, senior, elite, like, so it's going in that direction. It's probably the best route going, because amateur boxing is pretty structured. Let's be real, especially like in Ireland. Outside of I guess the IAB, outside of that, then look, it works, and I think it's going to be the way forward. And I think next year is probably going to be pretty big, especially for IMA with everything that they've done this year and all the plans. I'm really excited for it.
It's cool to kind of like build not a brand, but like just excitement, I guess, around your fighting. Like when you can see these guys going up against each other, and you can kind of get excited, and it's a lot more, obviously you have fighters fighting on regional shows all the time, and there's different promotions all around Ireland, but when you kind of have a centralized, right, here's the nationals, let's see what the crack is here, and you can kind of, you learn about guys like a Jake Nye. I'd never heard of him in my life before the nationals, and then he pops up then a few months later with that crazy sub not too long ago, and was it RFC or Cage Legacy? I can't remember which show it was now, with the Cage Legacy. So you start to kind of learn a bit more about these guys, and I know from my own perspective, like, I was watching the pro scene very heavily, but really until we launched the podcast, now I'm kind of bed into the amateur scene as well, but I didn't have as much of a focus on it previously. So it's cool. It's good to kind of get that insight into people.
And it's a conversation shot. Oh, sorry, Quilch, you go ahead.
I was going to say, should you remember some of the fights that like you actually get from that little format, and ones that you'd never realize? And the one I'll never leave my brain is we got Colin Maher and Conor McCarthy, and it was just like, lads, you get something like that happening, something you didn't know you wanted, and you get it, and it was just brilliant. I know the decision was a different story, but like, it was just unreal. And you get these things, and it's probably going to be the way forward for it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. Like, before we move on to Bellator Dublin, which also happened in February as well, like, Sean, me and you have had the conversation about the kind of perfect path for an amateur fighter, and they have a luxury of selecting in between going the IMAF route or the regional scene route, or even better, maybe intertwining the two of them in together, which in my opinion is probably the best thing that you can do, whereas you get that kind of constant challenge and different fight styles on the IMAF international scene, but more so accustomed to what you're going to be doing as a professional and fighting once on a one-night basis at a show. You kind of get that with some of the regional scenes as well, but it's kind of entwine both of those kind of paths together. It seems to be the perfect way forward, and kind of developing yourself the best you can from going from amateur into professional.
100%. I think it's a very interesting, debate and discussion for coaches to have when bringing their fighters. I asked Peter Queally about it when I interviewed him there a couple of months ago, and I thought he gave a great answer. Like, and he kind of said both, like you were saying there. Some of them, obviously, Chris Fields and Team KF, they want all like the Saturday night amateur fights, I suppose, in arenas, because that's what it'll be when they get to Cage Warriors. That's what it'll be when they get to the UFC, and you can see that logic. And then I think everyone else kind of wants a bit of both, even the one, like the SVG and others that are doing the IMAFs, but all kind of towards the IMAFs. I do think a combination of the both is very, very interesting. One thing I think is interesting is, it might be a discussion for another day, but I saw his name escapes me, but is it Stephen Keller, the topology guy, the other day, saying like amateurs shouldn't be going in there just to learn, they should be going in there to win fights. And I like couldn't disagree with that anymore. Really, I think that was a ridiculous thing to say. And I know, I think it's, you know, obviously it's a discussion for another day as well. But like, if you are going to the IMAFs and, you know, you should be going there, you're representing Ireland to win a gold medal, absolutely. But if you know, you should be aiming to have as many possible fights as you could have when you're learning and when you're, you know, trying to grow as a fighter and trying to grow your experience. As we mentioned, like guys like Palahan and Christian Leroy Duncan who lost fights on the way up, they learn from them, they learn to grow, they learn to get better. And I think that's way more important than amateur. And, you know, that's something John Kavanagh has always said down through the years, and a lot of people have said as well. And I think, you know, I think that's a better thing. Like that's a problem as well. We were talking about it earlier on about with the nationals. I think there was a lot of, I think the rules could be changed a little bit to make it more of a learning experience rather than just a winning experience. Even, you know, I asked Peter Queally in that interview I was talking about as well. It's 3-minute rounds, isn't it? And maybe it'd be better to, you know, have like 1 5-minute round or 2 5-minute rounds or whatever it might be, just so you can't hold the guy against the cage for 2 minutes and you end up winning most of the rounds because of that. You'd learn more if that wasn't, you know, if you didn't have kind of the ability to do that. So I like. And it's good that a discussion like that is even a discussion, because, you know, we find ourselves, I suppose, in a good place with the amateur scene. And I think if we are having that discussion, it proves that, I suppose, the levels are rising.
100%. And look, it's a growing sport as well, and mistakes will be made and lessons will be learned, and we can kind of learn from them and move on. But honestly, I think everything is going in a really positive direction within Irish MMA. And you know, another positive thing, maybe to kind of jump over to the professional ranks as well, just a comment from Ben Cartledge there. Andy looks like he's being held hostage in that room. Think SOS.
I'm doing IT support here on the side.
There you go. Trying
to get a guest in.
Thanks for the support, Ben. We really appreciate it. And anyone else who's listening or watching along, feel free to send in questions. We'll do our best to answer or share some of your opinions as well. We'll try to answer them.
Shout out to One Credit Classics as well.
One Credit Classics.
Video game YouTube there.
Gold standard in judgment, Ben Cartledge. Appreciate the support.
I thought you got with me there. Sorry.
Yeah. But look at perfect timing to kind of bring in our next guest as well, because we have Sinead Kavanagh who's joining us, and we're just going to talk about Bellator 275. And Sinead came off one of the biggest fights in Irish MMA history when she took on Leah McCourt in the O2. Sinead, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Yeah, I'm okay. All good.
All good. How's this year been for you, Sinead? Obviously, you had the high of getting that big win against Leah, but ultimately you kind of got a little bit, you got injured in that, and you're spending a lot of the year in recovery. How has the recovery been, and where are you at right now?
Yeah, it was a tough year after that win. You know, it was mentally tough, and yeah, it went from good to bad in like after that fight. You know.
100%. How are you at right now? How is the leg feeling? You're back training and everything.
Yeah,
like
I'm back training, back sparring, back doing everything, you know, and yeah, just keeping doing what I'm doing, you know. Obviously, I'm still in and out of Santry, but everything's going great so far, you know.
Yeah, 100%. And you're shaping up for December, and feel free to come in, lads, as well. We said we'd have to have you on with your favorite Sean Sheehan as well. He's here as well in the chat. He was up there. Well, look, at a lot of talking point around your fight with Leah was, and I think you and Leah both said it, Sinead, it was kind of strange because the two of you guys kind of came up at the same time, and it's a bit hard kind of competing against a fellow Irish woman as well. Was that kind of hard for you to kind of get accustomed to in training for that fight and getting in there and fighting someone like Leah, considering that you do know her quite well, you've trained before, and the two of you are kind of on the same trajectory as Irish women?
Yeah, it was obviously it was tough, you know, but we both knew it was going to come down to it you know, it's not a friend game, it's a fighting game, you know, and like we had to prove who was the best in Ireland at the time, you know, so yeah, we that's why we stopped training together and we stopped having our little sessions together, because we knew it was going to come down to it. Like, And even John said it to me there before, like that was going to happen, like, you know. So to back away, even though we talked to each other and we had we had each other's back and stuff like that with other fights, but we knew this was going to happen. That we knew it was going to come down to that.
100%. And now you're looking forward into 2023 as well. You have the fight lined up for February. You must be buzzing to get back in there and kind of pick up where you left off.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Like it's a bit of a revenge, bit of sweet revenge. This one, you know, this fight, because of what happened the last time in America. You know, when I was fighting Janae.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if anyone who hasn't seen the previous fight, so it was stopped because of a doctor stoppage, but because of a cut. So it's probably one of those ones where you're like, here, come on, let's get back to it and find out who the real winner is. Yeah, like I thought I was winning that round, you know, but I do think I've came on, like, and since that fight that happened, and the cut man let me down as well. I always say, you know, he got the sack afterwards. Which he did. You know?
Sinead, do you think that if you win this one now, that's guaranteed a title shot and against Cyborg, whoever champion is at the time, or is it going to be one or two more fights again?
I think it's going to be a few, like, you know, I'd like to just win this one and then see where I'm at, like, if I have to do another one, I will. As in the Cyborg fight, I know where I messed up, and I would like to obviously do it again, you know.
But sure, were you not set to fighter as you were being carried out by John and Connor?
Yeah, he did say that. Yeah, he did say that. But I think with me, with the injury I had, maybe it's not the best to go straight in, guns blazing again. Like, you know, take me time.
Shawnee, I know you had something to say there.
I do. I'll head out now after this. But one thing, Sinead, I know we're not supposed to do this now, and it's supposed to be next week, but we're doing the live stream. We might as well say it now. You've won our award for the 2022 Irish Female Fighter of the Year. So
Hey,
Congratulations.
That's a few in the bag there now, Sean, isn't it?
It's a few. Was it 3 times now? I think. Sure, Jesus.
Yeah, I was good actually when I didn't get it. I just thought I'd get that and whatever, but then when I didn't get it, I felt a little hurt. I was like, oh. So I'm taking this one. I am.
love it.
Very good.
Love
I
it.
never got a plaque. I hope I get the plaque this time.
You know, there's one on the way. You'll have it. I'll meet you in February with it.
Yeah,
There's two on the way, though. Is that right, Sinead? Eh?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh God,
Definitely.
we'll have to back that up. Right, I'll leave you, lads. Thanks very much. Enjoy the show.
Thank you.
We won't keep you for too much longer, Sinead, but you talked about revenge. We talked on this podcast a lot. You know, if you're going on a revenge tour next year, would Leslie Smith be another one that you'd like to get a bit of revenge on as well, perhaps, if you're going down?
Oh, definitely. That's another fight I should have won, like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's finished. I don't think she's fought in Cyborg.
Yeah, I don't think so either. No, I don't think
she had a problem with her. She was lucky she even got that fight with Cyborg because she had something wrong with her MRI for her brain or something like that. So I think
yeah. And that fight was that ever put on the table for you in the past or talking going
after
ahead?
that? No. For a rematch, nothing was ever said. I would have loved it. I would have jumped at that, like, you know.
100%.
I made it look like a bleeding punch bag.
You did.
So
yeah,
I did.
No, that was a robbery. We're not just saying it because we're here. We all said it at the time, and everybody said it. That was a robbery, and definitely one you deserve to get back as well. But you see that Bellator, after adding to the division as well in recent days, Sarah McMahon got signed up to Bellator, and
I did, yeah.
Yeah, so that be a fight that would interest you as
in your
well.
face there.
You know, I'm going to be getting that force. That's the way it goes. Show Sinead in, you know, she'll do it.
And Cage Chat asked the same question as well. What did you make of the signing? But seeing Bellator coming in and bringing in fresh faces, it's good for the division as well to bring in these fresh faces because, you know, we're getting a scenario where there's a lot of rematches happening, and having new faces coming in and fresh challenges is good for all the fighters in division, not alone just yourself as well, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I like Sarah McMahon. She's a great fighter, you know, but I think her last fight, she wasn't in the UFC. She wasn't up to much. I thought, like, she's beatable. Our recent fights.
Yeah,
So
no,
I thought,
I would agree. I'd agree too. But it's a good name to have on your.
oh yeah, give me it. Yeah, definitely. It's one. It's one like it's one that you'd brag about that if you got the win.
100%. Sinead, is the plan for you 2 fights, 3 fights next year? You want to fight on both Dublin cards? We're assuming they're coming back February and obviously again in September. Would that be the goal for you to be on both?
Yeah, well, actually, I want 3 fights because it's only been like one fight, and then the injury. Then it's so it's been tough financially wise as well. Like I don't make any more money than fighting. And so yeah, I'd like to get the 3 fights in. I got me visa, me American visa again. So hopefully then there's plans for me to fight over there then again, but that hasn't been lucky. I never get to win. Like,
go out for the finish. That's it. Leave no doubt for no dodginess over there. That'd be scenario. But no, it's great to see you back and you're back training and the road to recovery. And I know everyone is excited to see you getting back in there and fighting again. And they'll be buzzing to see you in action there in February. Lads, have anything else for Sinead before we let her on?
No, yeah, just to echo, like, definitely great to see that you're back training, and you kind of mentioned at the start there that it's kind of been a tough year, obviously with the injury. Like, how tough has it been, and like, are you in a kind of a better? I'm sure mentally it's probably rough not being able to train, and
it was terrible. Like, I was in like a wheelchair, and then it was crutches, like, and it was months without even being able to walk or to do anything. And then when I got going, it was very slow. It was like you're not getting anywhere, so there was plenty of gargling. Trying to kill the demons.
I ran into you in the Gibson there for the last Bellator show, and it was odd seeing you with the pint in hand rather than prepping for a fight. It was very tough. It was probably the worst year I've had, to be honest. Like in it's Spartan. It was tough. It was very tough. Like, considering coming off a huge win where it's the biggest female fight in Irish MMA history, one of the biggest fights in Irish MMA history, period. To then be obviously it's because of the injury, but to say it's been one of the worst years, it's obviously had a very significant toll on you, the injury and the aftermath.
Yeah, because that's all I've known growing up is training and stuff, and that literally got taken away from you, and then you can't even walk and you can't even get in the shower, it was very rough. It was rough, I had my girl there, she was minding me and stuff, and and then just getting back and then telling people not to do stuff because you don't know what way it can go again, so that's why it was.
What was the basis of your kind of recovery and your rehab on it? Did you were just spending strength and conditioning and building it back up? A very tedious kind of process, I would imagine, and kind of a slow burning one as well, where you kind of probably feel like you could go 100 miles an hour, but then your body's incapable of going 100 miles an hour. Kind of finding that balance must be hard when you are trying to recover.
Yeah, it was strength and strength, building the leg back up, the quad and stuff. I literally couldn't move it for months. I was in bed for a few weeks. I literally couldn't walk on it, couldn't put it onto the ground, couldn't put any pressure on it. So yeah, it was rough. I tore my ACL, tear my MCL, and I had 2 sprayings in my knee. And I fought on with that. That happened in the first 30 seconds, of the fight. So
yeah, it's nuts that you were able to kind of to fight through
that. Came back down, yeah.
Crazy what the mind is capable of in the heat of the moment. But no, like I said, Sinead, thanks very much for taking the time to join us today. Hopefully we'll get to chat to you again ahead of one of your other fights next year. And we wish you all the best in your training.
And I have one more question for you before we go. Seeing as you were in a huge fight for Irish women's MMA. There's another one brewing at the moment between Shauna Bannon and Danny McCormick.
Well, yeah.
What you make of that? As one of the leading women in Irish MMA, what you make of that?
I think it's a great fight. I think, yeah, I do think it's a great fight. I do think that the two good women, but I do think Danny has the upper hand in that fight, big time.
Interesting.
So I do.
Interesting.
An
Yeah.
SPG fighter back in an SPG fighter. I never thought I'd see today.
Hilarious. Well,
But
thanks
no,
so much.
they're two good girls, and I wish them the best. And if it comes down to it, of course, it's an entertaining fight. Be nice to watch.
Big tune.
For sure.
Big time.
Yeah.
Thanks
Merry
so much.
Christmas, Sinead.
All right.
Right, lads. Thanks a mil. Bye
All the
bye.
best. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
No, that was great. You got that in,
Andy,
Andy.
you're so bad to start this.
Just
a bit of shit
stir
start-
that shit. Just listen, they're the ones calling each other out. They're the ones,
That's
I
it.
actually thought you were going about the whole women's boxing or something there, but no. Straight into that one.
But what
No,
was
no,
it like,
no.
lads? You were in the arena there for Sinead and for Leah in February, and it was a great event. We could maybe talk about the other one in September. We probably didn't hit as hard as the one in February, but everything went perfectly well as regards Irish fighters doing well and entertaining fights and Irish fighters getting the win. Obviously, we had Lee Hammond there that moved to 2-0, that kicked off the card. Nate Kelly picked up a great win on that card as well. Dara Kelly won. Obviously, Danny McCormick was unlucky not to get that the win over Stephanie Page. And then we had other wins, other undercard. Kieran Clark produced a great performance. Sinead and Leah obviously was brilliant. It capped off a perfect night for Irish
I think it
MMA.
was the best card they put on in Dublin, to be honest. And it was the performances that were there, the stories behind them. It was, I always think of Cara Moore's performance, like that's the one that really stood out to me on the night. Just the fact that he came back after years away and he was losing the fight. It was a comeback win. He gets the finish. His dad's going nuts. He's, the emotions afterwards. It was kind of like a perfect win for him in a lot of ways. There was so many great performances. Like I felt like the crowd was buzzing. Pedro Carvalho with a career best performance. Liam McCourt getting back to winning ways. There was some brilliant performances. Kenny Mokin, the chokes, the way that the card started off was just nuts. Like Luke Apocalypse had that insane Lukinator choke, which is probably one of the best submissions of the year period in MMA. Kenny Mokinwana, choking Alex Bodner unconscious. It was from from start to finish. Obviously, the Queally fight didn't end the way we wanted it to, but brilliant card, great atmosphere. And yeah, hopefully the next one can deliver. I have my doubts, but we'll see what Bellator can pull out of the bag. We've two lads coming on here now who may have some opinions about this, as Andy Hickey and Paul Brown join us. How are you, lads? Merry Christmas.
Well, boys.
What's up, lads?
How are you getting on?
What are you in, Andy?
Swing chair.
Saying us in style there.
I have an extremely bad hangover, so I'm in my comfort chair today.
I love it. Lads, we were just kind of in the midst of talking about Bellator Dublin there. Looking back at it, at the one in February, what was kind of your takeaways from that? Obviously, we just got off with Sinead there, who kind of went through the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, really, when it comes to it, and that's what mixed martial arts is in a nutshell, really. But maybe, Andy, you were up there, you witnessed the event, you go up to all those live events as well. What was it like from your perspective seeing that? And it was a pretty good night overall for Irish MMA, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a great night. I go to all of them. A lot of them blur into each other at this stage when we have two every year. I thought the main event was...
Is that the cards or the pints now?
Points. I did. It was a good event. I thought the main event it left a sour taste. I think both main events left a sour taste, particularly the one in February. Like, as a fan, I know you've journalistic integrity there. When you go to these cards, you're there to cover them. I'm there to have a few pints and enjoy myself, and I didn't want to see, I've seen Mousasi before. I didn't want to see Austin Vanderford in a main event in Dublin. Give me anything else. But Sinead and Leah was an amazing fight. I think it was probably the second best fight this year with a featuring an Irish fighter. Of course, Kieran doing brilliant then, and it was a good card. I enjoyed it overall. Obviously, it didn't have James and Peter, who were huge draws for us here. So solid. I preferred the one in September, to be honest.
That's interesting now, because the one in September, I think overall kind of fell a little bit flat, really, did it, lads? Or what was the atmosphere like there in the September one in comparison to the February one? Like, you can tell me better than I would know myself from watching.
After round 2 of the main event, it died.
Yeah.
People were leaving left, right, and center. It was just dead. It reminded me of the event they did where they had what was it, Satoshi Ishii, and who did he fight in the main event? King Mo, yeah. Back at that event where it was essentially empty, people just started leaving, and it was sad to see. It's like people just gave up hope all of a sudden. But before that, it was fairly buzzing. Like before that, everyone, there was a good buzz. But after about 2 rounds, 3 rounds, that was kind of, it was a shame to see, really, and hopefully it doesn't happen again. But hard to know. It's a double card.
I'll bring in Paul. It's like, how important is it for you, Paul? Look, you're a guy who's been ingrained in the kind of grassroots level of mixed martial arts this year. But at the big stage too, it's just important to be able to kind of put on these fights and give the professional fighters a platform to perform in front of their home fans as well. Because my opinion on all of that is, the importance of building that fan base in Ireland is something that really helped Conor McGregor kind of rise through to further stardom and building that support there. And you're not going to be able to do that unless you put on some of these big shows, and plus along with some of the older regional shows as well. But we seem to be in a real good place in Irish MMA right now, where we're kind of getting the best of both worlds, where we're seeing these talented guys come through some great shows in the grassroots level or regional MMA, and getting these big shows in Bellator once or twice a year. And now with Cage Warriors coming into the mix next year, and maybe PFL as well, it's a real promising time right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been massive. Like the last 6 months in particular has been like absolutely chaotic, like domestic events and things like that. It's been great to see it back, because after like the stop-start few years really with the whole pandemic, and then certain promotions struggling to get back on their feet afterwards and whatnot, it's really, really taken off over the last few months. And we've seen cards on 3-4 weeks in a row sometimes, and still being able to fill up the cards with fighters. So there's guys out there that are looking for fights, and that only bodes well for us going forward. A lot of those guys, we seem to have quite a lot now that are at that sort of, like you said, grassroots level. They're fighting on the domestic shows, like the likes of EUR and Cage Legacy and Cage Conflict, as amateurs on the undercards. But a lot of those, some will be filtered out, but a lot of those guys are having some real good success, and they're going to start filling up the pro ranks over the next year or two as well, which I'm really excited about, And it's been great fun to be sitting there cage side and actually having to study these fighters at this stage of their careers and embed myself in that. I'm really enjoying that whole that whole part of the job,
Yeah, there's nothing like it. I mean, you can watch like the UFC level, you can watch everything like that, but like seeing, and I've said it, like I was talking to Andy and Quilsha when we were talking about other fights coming in, and there's been times where I've been watching like some Cage Conflict cards or Cage Legacy cards, and where I had to stop the fight and pause it and text the lads and say, fucking hell, lads, the level of fight of kind of fighters we're seeing coming through and skill set we're seeing coming through in Irish MMA, as we've all been watching it for years now. I think it's definitely at the best it's ever been, and it has a potential to grow as well.
Down after watching Conor McCarthy and Roman David
go
at each other on
what a scrap, yeah, what a fight.
Brilliant. But look at questions come in here from Tommy Slug. Maybe I'll get one of you. Maybe Andy might take a look at this for us. What's the future look like for James Gallagher? Obviously, Andy, there was a big disappointment around not adding him to the Bellator card next year, obviously. And it was a year for James where, he probably wouldn't have been as active as he would have liked to be. But obviously these things happen sometimes. What would you like to see for him, like maybe going forward in 2023?
I think James is in a very...
Sorry, you go, Andy. You go,
Two Andys.
Yeah, fuck. My bad. Bring the guests in first.
Well, I think James is in a bit of a difficult position now. Like, he's obviously settled in the States now. He's got a family over there. We all know the issues that are going around in the gym he trains with, and he's head coach. So, what does he go from here? I can't understand. I'd speculate why he's not fighting in February. Like, James has sold so many cards. I'm just talking here, sweetie. James has sold so many cards on his own in Dublin and brought so many people to it. I think it's very insulting if he's fit and ready to go to not have him on the card. I definitely think there's some bit of a hang up there regarding where he's training at the moment, and Scott Coker made that very, very public as well, what he's doing with that. So it's what I think James hasn't fought since the Patchy Mix fight, which is November 21, if I'm right. So it's been a long time for a man that's entering his prime now. He's probably 26 or 27. So we need to get him back out there again. And I think if he fights in the States, he's not going to have that development as well as he could have here. And he's not going to, pique the interest of the United States crowd over there. And he's not well loved over there either, because he's been continuously, portrayed as a wannabe Conor McGregor. So in an ideal world, you'd love to say, James, come back to SBG, train in Ireland, go through the routes, but he's in a difficult spot right now.
He is, but I mean, I think going back to that loss against Patchy Mix, whoever wants to come in on this as well, is like whatever it was at the time, it definitely looks like a lot better now, because for me, Patchy Mix is, in my opinion, one of the favorites to win that tournament now. His performances stay getting better and better and better. So like, if there's anything to take off a loss, it's like, I think, James got beaten by a very, very good fighter there and hung with them there for a good spell of that fight as well. So I think we're all in the opinion that it'd be great to see James come back and just fight. I don't care who it's against. I don't care where it is at, to be honest. It's be great to be in Ireland. It's great to have the Jimmy Show back in Ireland as well. But, when we're talking about developing your fan base, I think James has that fan base well developed in Ireland right now. No matter if he didn't fight there for the next 2 or 3 times, he'd come back and probably still sell that show out. It's like, I think I'd just love to see him in there. He said on his Instagram feed that he's hoping to fight in March. So that would be great. That would be likely in the US, obviously, if it was to happen, but there's been nothing confirmed as of yet. What are we guys thinking? Who would you like to see? Is there names that we could throw about there and kind of see who we'd like to see him in there with? Would we give him a ranked opponent? Would we give him maybe a young up-and-comer? Anyone want to kind of jump in there and share their opinion?
Well, I think after such a long time out, might be an idea to just sort of take a step back with him, giving him someone who's like at the very top end of the rankings. Where is James in the rankings at the moment? Does anyone know?
I'll find out.
Sorry, I've joined here. I've got a bit of company. Is he high up in the rankings?
He's number 8, I think, off the top of my head.
Yeah, so maybe someone sort of a little bit below. I think it's been a long time off, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's since September 2021, so it's been a while now. Brad Wharton's here saying James Scanner versus Brett Johns. I know Andy Hickey doesn't really want to see that fight from an optical perspective, but look, the two lads, they both want to fight. I don't really know what's going on. The Johns camp wanted, the Gallagher camp wanted. For some reason, it hasn't been made on this for who knows. We don't know the reason, but it hasn't been made. It's a fight that kind of made logical sense. I think both Andy and Ian made some great points there about how James has shown he's at that level. He's able to hang with. He didn't look out of place at all with Patchy Mix. I thought he was very competitive in that first round, and yeah, he lost. But at the end of the day, he showed development and growth in his game. This was his first real challenge since suffering that knockout loss a number of years ago at this point. So also to capitalize on the fan base, Bellator needs to be very smarter. Ireland is their mecca for fighting. It's as simple as that. They should be putting the best fighting cards on in Ireland as they can. James is a massive piece of Irish MMA and a huge selling point for them, especially when you've got Queally coming off a couple of losses where he kind of stepped into that role of the guy. I think, James could kind of come back and slot right back into that position now again. Obviously, the Queally walkout will always be incredible, but when you're coming off a couple of losses, no harm, maybe stepping away from being the main event, getting the wins back, and then you can re-emerge again. But yeah, look, I think it should be in Ireland is where his next fight should be. And it doesn't really matter a whole lot, just a competitive fight, and let's see where he's at and if he can rebound and if he's ready to hit the ground running again in the top 10 of the division.
I'll give you a name.
I'll give you. Go on. I was going to say the same thing.
And you
go on. You're the guest. Work away.
You're going to say this is too much of a jump. But I'd like to see James Gallagher fight Danny Sabatello.
Oh, that would be great crack.
Jesus, yeah.
Because Sabatello's going to take that to James's world. James is a wizard on the ground. I'd love to see that fight.
Could you imagine the shit talk?
I think, I think if the way we're talking, there's no doubt that we see fights like that coming forward for James as well. It's just, for me, it's the layoff. Do we want to throw him right back into the fire, like we did, like somewhat with Patchy Mix? Like we threw him straight in there with Patchy Mix after having a year off since winning against Cal Eleanor. So it's like, I think without a doubt, next year, a fight like that against someone in the top of the division, whether that be his first fight back, I don't know, it'll be yet to be seen. But just want to welcome Sean Denny into the chat. I mean, we've added him in for a minute. What's your thoughts on everything regarding James Gallagher, Sean?
Yeah, it's hard to keep the hype going when you're not in the cage. And so, like, he's missed a few Dublin shows. He's probably missed more than he's been on at this stage. So I think he needs a couple of wins under his belt just to catch fire again, and to shut up some of the maybe the US crowd over in the States that just constantly slag him off. Like, I think he needs 2 or 3 wins just to get his name back out there, get the W beside the name, and then he can be the Jimmy Show again.
100%. Let's maybe focus a little bit more attention back on the regional scene again. We'll talk about March this year. Probably the biggest fight on the regional scene, if I'm not mistaken, would have been Ger Harris versus Kieran Mulholland at the time, a Cage Conflict 6. It was Ger Harris's kind of breakthrough onto the professional scene, and my goodness, guys. And Paul, maybe I'll bring you in for this one as well. Just to maybe talk a little bit about Ger Harris and kind of his introduction onto the professional scene in Ireland right now.
You're
You're
muted
good.
at the moment. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Ger has a cracking start, and I'm interested to find out if he's actually going to go and fight against Jared Burns for the unified Cage Conflict title. He has the he has the interim one, doesn't he, Jared Burns?
Yeah,
he does. Yeah, he does.
Yeah, so like that's a really interesting next matchup if they can put that together. I think they have. I could be wrong. It'll be March or April when they have their first show of the year. I think March. So I'd be very interested to see if that's going to be the main or the co-main event. That'll be a cracking fight for those guys.
Absolutely, it would. Absolutely. And, you know, also that year as well, or in that month, excuse me, we saw Lee Hammond come in and move to 3-0 in Heroes Fight League as well. Dylan Tuke returned after a 4-year absence, won via first round rear naked choke as well. Like, this is proven, you know, obviously Will Fleury was a big month for Irish MMA in March. Will Fleury picked up his UAE Warriors middleweight title, and Kenny Makahana picked up a solid first round win in UAE Warriors too. Lots of talking points to come out from March this year. And it just kind of proved the level of talent that the Irish MMA is producing, and even on the professional ranks. And we can talk about the amateur ranks in a little bit as well. But lots to take away from that, Paul. What was kind of your standout moment, maybe out of all of those kind of results and outcomes in March?
Well, there's quite a few there, but I'd imagine Ger Harris is probably the standout one, because I think he's going to do things. He's going to do bits in the professional ranks, and he had 2 fights this year in total, didn't he?
Yep.
Yeah. Two very, very, very impressive performances. Yeah, I'm really excited to see where he goes going forward. You know, it's we don't have a whole lot of professional flyweights either. Like, so at least we got someone there we can get behind. You know, Jer's a really nice guy, and he's a legit fighter, isn't he? So I think he's definitely one to watch going forward in the pro ranks. You know,
yeah,
because the lesser numbers seemingly.
Yeah, it's like taking on a guy like Kieran Mulholland as well in your pro debut. You know, that's not no easy out, and it was, as you said, a great fight. So when you see a guy like that who kind of has the it factor, he can talk, he has kind of like an intriguing persona. He's got the fighting capabilities, and he's not afraid of a scrap. You know, you're on the right path there anyway, and you'll see, you know, a long way to go, but you'd be interested to see how that progresses over the next couple of years.
100%.
Yeah, it's interesting to see when a guy has a load of confidence, but he's able to back it up, you know. And so far, he's been able to back it up. So let's keep that ball rolling and see where he ends up.
Yeah,
he's not that bad of a commentator either.
He's all right, isn't he?
Good crack now. I was one of my favorite.
He had me rolling on the floor laughing when I was sitting beside him. I was trying to keep a straight face and do my job, but Yeah, some of the one-liners were really good.
Yeah. It's been a good year for you, Paul. Jeez, you've been bet into the Irish MMA now this year. You've like everywhere you look at any single show, you're there. Like, have you
Yeah,
enjoyed
it's
it
been a
this
lot
year?
of
And
fun.
obviously transitioning more from the officiating side to the commentary side. What's it been like for you? Are you happy overall with your year?
I've loved it, to be honest. And there's a massive difference between the two. Like, I've been like, judging and reffing for like 5 years. I mean, some of you guys have sat beside me while I'm doing that, and you can see how great the vantage point is when you're right up against the cage and whatnot. But the thing that happens, I remember Mark Goddard telling us when we did our officiating course back in the day, what was it, 2016 or whatever. One thing he pointed out, and it always stuck with me, was you can't be seen to be overly friendly with people. You can't have like selfies of you and a friend of yours who's a coach or a fighter on your Instagram page, because then someone could point back at that and say, look, well, he gave his fighter the decision because of blah, blah, blah. So I'd always be conscious of when I was going to work at shows, not to be seen to be too friendly, too pally with people. So I'd enjoy the work and it was great fun, but you couldn't relax and actually enjoy just the social aspect of the show. Whereas now I just do me work in advance of the show. I have all my notes prepped, and then I walk in there and it's just, you just get to hang out and chat to people and relax and engage with people. And you can shake people's hands, you can hug them, all of that stuff. So you can really enjoy your evening's work a bit more than it being so, intense and feeling a bit under pressure. Because like if you fuck up a little bit, no one really cares. But if you do that when you're officiating, people care. So it's been much more enjoyable. A lot less pressure to deal with. And Jesus Christ, some of the experiences, getting to just get in the cage in the middle of those fighters when they're about to throw down, and the commentating is the thing I love the most. So you actually get to just dissect how these guys move and what they like to do, and then you're trying to break it down for the likes of all of us who follow the fights. But then you have to remember 90% of the people watching are probably their friends and family who probably don't have that level of understanding of the sport. So you sort of have to strike the right balance between explaining what's going on to those people, and then also you are also explaining to other fighters as well. So it's a fun job. It's really fun. I can't wait for next year. It's looking busy already.
And you've obviously had a great exposure to a variety of different promotions in Ireland, and I'm not going to get you to rank any over the other, considering they're all your potential employers. But like, do you notice, say, the difference between the various different promotions from like a production point of view, or like, are you able to kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, like some of them are newer to the sport. Like the guys in Premier, for instance, have only had, I think, 4 events, so they're making big strides and big changes each time, and they're making great improvements. The likes of the pacing of the show and stuff, and they'd even say to the likes of me and other people working on the show, what can we do better next time? So the guys like that are a little less experienced are great. And then you have other guys like Becky McAleen, and now his show's been running for a few years, a couple of years. I think is it 5 or 6 shows deep now, and they're bumper cards, like 24 fights on them and stuff. And they just seem to run like clockwork, So they all work a little bit differently to each other. But the big thing that holds it all together, the glue, is the cage side family, like the cuts teams, the likes of the people who do what I do, the commentaries like McGahan or Phil or whatever is there with me. You've got the medics, you've got the officials. They basically hand the reins over to us and let us get the show up and running, and it's great,
Which was your favorite? Like, which was the atmosphere, I suppose, that was the most fun or boisterous this year? Is there anyone that stands out?
The Cage Legacy ones, you can probably hear me little junior here shouting at me. Yay, cross-ons, that's great. We didn't have cross-ons, so I don't know where you got that. Okay. The Cage Legacy ones have been the ones probably with the wildest atmospheres. Cage Conflict as well, actually, with that Vadim Kolesnikov and Troy Gibson fight. Do you remember that, with the knees on the ground of the opponent? That was a wild moment. That really was wild. I ended up sort of in the middle of that, trying to keep people out of the first aid area, and that was nuts. Like, I'm usually first into the cage after, and I just came in as he was the aftermath of him pushing Fanul and Malone around the cage and stuff. So that was a bit chaotic, that whole thing,
Yeah, that was nuts. One of the big talking points of the year as well. And look at a couple of unfortunate kind of things happened there, but overall, I think common sense prevailed, and hopefully we won't see anything like that inside the cage again, because Cage Conflict did a great job in putting on some great shows this year, and unfortunately for the lads, they can't really control what's going on when the cage is when the cage doors are closed. Sean Denny, I'm going to bring you in just to talk, and we can maybe round up a little bit on March before we move to April a little bit. But Will Fleury won the UAE Warriors middleweight title, won his world title, beating Tarek Suleiman. It was just great to see Will in there and getting the belt and getting his crowning moment as well. Well deserved for a guy who's been through a hell of a slog in his career so far, really, isn't it?
Yeah, Will's one of the good ones. His time of year with all those potatoes as well. But I'd really love to see him active. He's come on leaps and bounds with his skill. I think the one thing he's just lacking is getting in there and getting it done. So he's been sort of promotion hopping a bit. I wouldn't have minded seeing him have another shot at UAE Warriors, defend that belt, because I think UFC would have been on the table. But look, if you can get into that £1 million tournament, or €1 million, or whatever currency it is, if you can get into that tournament in PFL, like, he's going to be tough to beat. If he gives himself the time to put on the size, he's going to be there or thereabouts come the end. Like, I'm really excited to see where he goes with his skills.
100%. Andy Hickey, as a tip man, and Paul mentioned PFL or Premier Fighting Championships. Was it good for you to see kind of a tip promotion come through, to see a couple of events happening in tip as well? And it's great to see kind of MMA spread out a little bit more throughout the country as well, and having a few events down south, because the events down south, obviously Premier did a great job in getting them in Clonmel and having one in Kilkenny as well. And it's just brilliant to see kind of all the fighters down there in the south getting the chance to kind of compete on a somewhat local card anyway. And I'm sure you're delighted to see the kind of introduction of a Tipperary based promotion as well.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The Talbot Hotel, where their base is about half a mile from my house, so it's great. But their events were a little bit blighted at the start with a lot of fight cancellations, some issues with Safe MMA, and I think one of the events went down and it only had about 8 fights on it, but they're extremely well run. I don't know if you've been to one of their events, but the cage is absolutely massive that they use. Very, very interesting. They did try to put on pro fights as well, but there was some issues there, and Owen Sheridan was touted to make his debut. I was really looking forward to that, as I've seen him live fighting K1 a few times, and he's a really, really classy operator. They moved around to Kilkenny. Then, like, the South used to be a hotspot for MMA back in the day. Like John Kavanagh made his MMA debut in Limerick.
Yeah, there's loads. Used to be loads of fights back in the day.
Yeah, you couldn't even imagine. You couldn't even fathom now an MMA event happening in Limerick. It'd be unheard of. It's great to see Premier coming back to Tipperary now from their little trip to Dublin in January. And we've also got a Premier Fight Night Muay Thai in early March as well. So that's great to see that this little county is getting fights live for us now. So really, really interesting. Can't wait.
Sure, you have to get. There's not too much else to get excited about in Tipperary at the minute anyway. So it's nice to have a few fights. I had to get it in, Andy. I'm sorry, lad. You're grand. Paul, before we let you go, just maybe shine a little bit more of a light on your black belt, your awarded black belt status from your coach Andy Ryan after years and years of training. It was a fantastic moment to see, and you must be over the moon to have received that, and looking forward to kind of getting it in the mix with other black belts as well. So congratulations. How was that moment for you?
Yeah, that was fairly surreal. It was like you said, a long time coming, but it's mental after you graft away at something for so many years. You sort of just accept, right, well, that's going to probably happen very soon, and you're not stressing about it too much. But then when it does happen, it's, even though you're sort of half expecting it, it's still sort of, it's still a bit of an emotional moment, because it's a nice landmark moment in a long, long journey. Usually now this time of year, I'd be slogging away at training over the Christmas, because the Jiu-Jitsu Europeans happens in January, but I'm not going this year. So I'm, as you can hear here, I'm on dad duties for the week here. I'm just painting toenails of little girls and playing with toys and all that stuff. So giving the body a little break, because the grading for the black belt was quite tough. So I've a few knocks I'm carrying since then. So yeah, it was great fun though. Really, really enjoyed the whole experience.
Hey, well, sure, if the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu doesn't work out for you, Paul, maybe you can open a salon or something like that.
It feels like that, man. I spent half my time putting hair in pigtails and painting toenails and picking out outfits and stuff. So it's I have to go and kick pads or do some sparring or do some rolling just to sort of balance out the universe after all of this stuff.
100%.
We'll let you get back to your R&R there anyway. Congratulations on the black belt, man. Merry Christmas.
Thanks so much for joining.
Congrats on an amazing podcast. It's great to have something. I sent you guys the link. This came up on my Spotify, wrapped as one of my top 2 or 3 most listened to podcasts, even though you only have one episode every couple of weeks. So keep it going, because it's great to have somewhere you can go just to keep up to date on what's happening on the scene. And it's great that you guys are putting in the hard yards. Fair play.
Appreciate it, Paul. Thank you so much, man.
Cheers, Paul.
Nice one.
Thanks, Paul. Well, that was great. And we'll create a bit more space. There might be a few more coming in anyway, lads. But on where shall we go here? We'll leave March. We'll go to April. And let's talk a bit of Cage Warriors 135. It was a successful night for a lot of the Irish fighters on that night. And maybe to highlight a man we tried to get on today, and I know he's busy drinking in the Black Forge as well, but it's been a great year for Caelan Loughran, who, one of the stories of Irish MMA for me in 2022, to see his rise up. And the way I labelled it after his last fight and his last win against Luke Shanks was, he went from a laughing stock at the start of the year to a full-on title contender in Cage Warriors. And I just think it's been a great story. And you know what? The naysayers and the doubters, to a certain respect, there was a lot of questions out there with Caelan, but I think, lads, he's done more than answer all those questions too. And we're talking about one of the most promising prospects in professional Irish MMA at the minute right now in Caelan. And I think 2022 was a big year for him. I think 2023 could be even bigger for him if things go his way as well. Anyone want to jump in and kind of share their thoughts on Caelan's kind of rise up before we get into some other goings on that card itself?
Let's get our guests going here, because we've talked about him enough over the year.
Yeah, go on, Andy.
I'll jump in. Yeah, I think Caelan, obviously a victim of his matchmaking in his earlier career was quite poor, to say the least. He fought out in LFL, looked good, and then he was touted to fight for Mazda in a fight that was untelevised, and we found out a couple of days later that there was a very late step in there, and basically he was fighting a lot of the standard of myself. So I can understand the questions that were being thrown his way. But he stepped up to the plate. He went 3-0 in Cage Warriors this year. All three wins were finishes. One of a very rare amount to do that. I've actually done the stats for the entire Cage Warriors in 2022, and he's very prominent on them from where he is. So he's right there in the picture. It's going to be a case of him, Martignoni, probably Nathan Fletcher if he wins next on Saturday. So I think you have to position Caelan very, very high up on that Dublin card in April, because he has a charisma about him where you just want to watch him. He's very aggressive and abrasive, but there's something very, very natural about him as well. It doesn't look forced when he's doing it. So he's very much one of the bigger prospects we have out in the country at the moment.
I think it was Senan Coakley that said it to you, Andy, was it? It's confidence, not cockiness, you know what I mean? And I think that's kind of can be said about Caelan as well, is that, the confidence comes in his preparation and stuff like that. And, and that's it, it can come across as cockiness as well, but it doesn't come across like that at all when you're going in there and performing like he's performing in the cage as well, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like when you can make someone else believe what you're saying, that's when it's effective, and that's when it comes across as authentic. And that's the vibe that I get off Caelan Loughran. It's where, he's telling you at any opportunity that he'll batter every single person on the UFC roster. He'll go in and fight UFC champions today. And like, you shrug it off and you think, okay, yeah, go on, Caelan. But then you kind of pause for a second. You're like, well, you never know. Like, or like he believes it, so maybe I should believe it too. But yeah, like he said, what a year he's had. I completely agree with Andy that it needs to be in a prominent spot on that Dublin card. I think he should be fighting for the title on that Dublin card. And what do you like, Sean and Andy, when you look at that Cage Warriors Dublin card? We've obviously talked about it on the podcast before, but like, what would you like to see from it, or what are your expectations of that card? Let's go to you first, Sean.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do because I think they might hold off Quaylen for another Rome show if it's for the title.
Oh, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah,
I don't think you could miss an opportunity to have him at Dublin. Really, could you, lads? Do you think is there that a possibility? I never really thought of it that way. I've kind of had tunnel vision and thinking that they've got to put him and Martinoni in Dublin. What do you
I
think?
think it'd be a misstep. I think the way I see it is Martignoni got to challenge for the title on his home turf. So let's let Loughlin challenge for the title on his home turf.
I think a lot will depend on Reese. So if Reese is defending, like he has to headline it. You've got the team KF and the team Rhino lads to go in. So there's a lot of Irish talent to go in, but I think it depends if you want to half sell out the building or if you want to go for the full sellout. If you're going for the full sellout, like you need your James Sheehan, you need Reese, you need Quaylen, you need to bring out all the big guns, and then you need to get like your advertising on the buses and things like that to make sure people come. So I think what they need to do is basically bring the biggest card they can to basically overshadow that February card for Bellator. Just absolutely torpedo that card with the talent, I think.
Quick one for the two of you then. Do you think Paul Hughes gets on the card, yes or no?
At this stage, I would say he has one more Cage Warriors fight. I haven't even heard any murmurings of him signing with the UFC yet. And if he does sign, I'd like him to get the 2 month camp. I don't want him jumping in too soon against somebody that's sort of established in the UFC.
Andy Hickey.
Yeah, I would hate if Paul didn't get signed to the UFC. I think his win over Jordan Vucenic is probably the most impressive performance I've seen in Cage Warriors since McGregor sparked Buchinger, and that must be 10 or 11 years at this stage. It was perfection. But if they do, are they going full arena, or are they going just the middle down?
That's the question that we were asking, Andy. We don't know, like, and I think depending on what that is, and I think on both ends of the stick, if you're I think what this is all about for Cage Warriors is selling tickets and creating a big night like they've done so well in the past. And it's like, I think to do that, you need to kind of keep your big stars. So you need to be keeping the likes of Paul Hughes and Reese McKee around to try and maybe put them in title fights, and maybe someone like Caelan as well. If I was asked what the ideal scenario would be at least 3 title fights, and that's Reese McKee versus Judo Jimmy. It would be Paul Hughes versus whoever.
Harry Hardwick, probably.
Harry Hardwick or someone like that. Like Sean did mention the option of maybe going up to becoming 2-way champion, which would be, pretty historic as well. And if you're wanting to follow in the footsteps of Conor and building that hype, I think it would be the perfect way of doing it. I'm not sure there's too many challenges left for Paul in the featherweight division there. That's the kind of pickle he's in. And then obviously you have Caelan against Martinoni, and then you'll build it up with other Irish talent throughout. Like, I think that's what's going to sell tickets. Those 3 fights in their own right would probably sell out half arena. It would garner that much interest. It's very interesting to see what to do. Very interesting to see if it is a full or if it's a half, because it's going to depend on the quality of the card and how well they do in their ticket sales and the price of tickets and loads of things as well. But I think when it comes to Cage Warriors right now, they have everything perfectly in place. And even when I was speaking to Reese McKee the last time, he was like, it's not ideal to be in fights like Justin Burlinson fights when, you could be in similar level fights in the UFC and probably getting paid more for it. So if you're going to be selling more tickets, you're going to be trying to draw the audience. I think the fighters need to see some of that money as well. And to kind of get those guys onto the cards, they'll need to be paid. And it'll be interesting to see if Cage Warriors do that. I'm not sure what anybody thinks of that. But that's for me. That would be my ideal scenario in the next one coming in. Just kind of maybe trickle back to 2022 on the same card that Caelan won that. We had Ryan Shelley picking up a win as well, who also had a successful year for Team KF, Sean Denny. And he's been on the up and up, and he's up at what I believe 5-0 right now coming into 2023. But it's great to kind of see his rise as well.
Yeah, it's always good when you see someone from Team KF come up, because like you get to see Chris Field shouting on your TV for one, so you get to see him play them like a PlayStation, and then you get to see him get annoyed if they don't follow it. But yeah, Shelley is very, very good, and I think he's mixing the arts a little bit better than his brother at the moment. But they have a great knowledge of how the fights are scored. And I think that is sort of very beneficial when it comes to the likes of Cage Warriors. And like Andy Hickey yourself, like you did sort of did a bit of analysis on all the decisions and things like that. Like some of these Cage Warriors fights, when they go to decision, they can be quite close. So and the Cage Warriors judges are very consistent. So your knowledge of they got bit by James Webb that time when he didn't put enough damage in. So it's great to see the likes of Shelley, his brother, Taka, all these lads, um, put that now into practice, learn from that mistake, and make sure they're getting these wins because it's very important. And like I think they're 87% win ratio this year, so it's great to see Team KF on the rise.
Well, just as you say that, Sean Denny, and talking about all the great judging that's gone on this year, we'll now introduce Matthew Elliott to the stream, who came off the wrong end of a judge's decision in probably the most controversial scorecards of all of Irish MMA this year. Definitely caused the most stir on the local scene. How are you, Matt?
I'm good. How's
You
things?
there? Can you hear us? How are you getting on? Merry Christmas. What are you up to?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can. There's a bit of a lag.
Can you hear me?
We'll soldier on. We can, yeah. How are you anyway? What are you up to at the moment?
No, all's good, mate. No, just out. Was just training there, so I'm just in the car. So
what do you reckon about that Shelley versus Elliott decision earlier this year? Great call by the judges, was it?
Obviously, I disagree with it. I think the vast majority of people do, but at the end of the day, it's I can control what I can control. So I think at some stage or another, there's things in the game that need to be corrected, and it's now that I get to do it. So I'm not going to dwell on it too much. So I think everyone I've spoke to disagrees with it, but if it lets him sleep at night, he can say that.
So look, we obviously haven't seen you fight since June in Belfast. What have you been up to as far have you were talking about correcting a certain few things in your game? Has it just been flat out training, or how's life been?
Yes, I've been training away, so we're still improving. What it was about 3 weeks before the fight in Belfast. I scratched my right retina, and it was quite a bad scratch. And then I ended up out of training for a week, and then the second I came back on my first training session back, I scratched my left one. So then I was out for another week, and basically since the fight, I just continued training and sparring. And anytime my eyes are taking any sort of impact, they're just getting scratched and reinfected again because the back of my eyes actually haven't had a chance to heal. So at the minute, we're kind of just on a break from sparring to let things heal and hopefully get back to things sooner rather than later.
Yeah, geez, that sounds fairly rough. Like, how do you approach that? Like, how do you fix that?
I don't know. I ended up there. Basically, what kind of pushed it there was I ended up with an ulcer on my eye. So I don't exactly know how it happened, but it was something along the lines of infection getting in while I was training. From the back of my eyes having not healed since then. So essentially all I can do is wait it out and hope that whenever I do go back that they have healed enough that it's not going to be a recurrent problem.
Yeah, like, I mean, fingers crossed that can get sorted, as soon as possible, really, and that it's not affecting you kind of moving forward in your career. We're at the end of the year here. Looking back, and you went 1-on-1. Obviously, you had that grueling fight with Michelle De Silva on Cage Conflict, and then the fight against Ryan Shelley. How do you reflect on your year as a whole? Looking back at 2022.
I'm not happy at all with it or at all about it. I think performance-wise, which were good. Like, a lot of it was a lot of certain things that I did were hard to fault, but then there was a few mistakes which created like quite big problems. So even within the two performances, I'm not overly happy with either of them. Obviously, the Silva one, there was a bit of gas tank issues, and with the Shelley one, obviously it's going down as a loss. So I can't be happy with it. I think there's definitely things need to change, because even if I look at it from like an entertainment standpoint, it's not like I'm putting on the most entertaining fights either. So I do need to correct this, especially with the way the judges are scoring fights now. It's almost that they're not just not scoring wrestling, they're getting punished for wrestling, and the only way around it is getting a finish. And as I haven't been finishing people, so that does need to change.
And is it like literally just a case of adding in strikes? Like, you know, obviously you're a very dominant wrestler, you're very, you know, a credentialed wrestler in the Commonwealth and fighting for, or wrestling for Team GB and all that. When the judges are looking, as you said, they're looking to see that damage. They're looking to see, like, they don't really care if you've gotten a mat return, if you've gotten a takedown. It doesn't really matter to them unless there's damage going in on top of that. So is it just a case of, right, I let's say I run it back with Ryan Shelley, I get to these positions, and now it's a case of unloading my shots, and having more of a focus on those moving forward?
No, I definitely think if I ran it back with Ryan, I would just keep it standing, because obviously Ryan's not going to be able to take me down. And I feel that watching back, I won every striking exchange. The only hard shot landed on the feet was from me in the third round. So I definitely think I would just keep it standing, because I know Fine Right, let take his head off. I think that it's just whenever the situation, or whenever I did fight him, it was take the path of least resistance with and just wrestle. Whereas I definitely should have kept it standing a lot more. So I think from now on, the wrestling can be used to keep things standing, because I'm more than confident with my striking. So I'm happy enough to stand with any of these boys. So
yeah, and obviously
I think we stick up with it.
The rest of the lads can jump in here at any point. We were chatting there about Paul Hughes. We were chatting about Cage Warriors in general. It's obviously been an incredible year for Fight Academy Ireland, and an amazing win for Paul, winning the title. When you look at the Cage Warriors Dublin card, like what do you think is going to happen here? Like who do you expect to see on the card? And are we going to see Paul in the UFC rather than I don't want to see Paul in this Cage Warriors Dublin card. I know Andy Hickey, most of us, we don't want to see Paul in the Cage Warriors Dublin card. As much as we would like to, we want to see him in the UFC. What do you reckon as a teammate? What do you think is going to happen?
I would like to imagine that if they announce the UFC London card, Paul will get signed. I think if Paul doesn't get signed, it kind of defeats the purpose of Cage Wars. I think the thing with Cage Wars is that you take the bad purse essentially to get the publicity and to get the UFC noticing you. So I think if you take that out of the equation, why not be in a different organisation? And with that being the biggest fight in Cage Wars history, I think I do think it's a bit definitely a bit lackluster if he doesn't get signed. So I would imagine he does get signed there before UFC London. I think they're just holding out until they can actually give him a date, because they don't even have a card here the 20th of January, and all the cards are already booked up. So are they signing him just to keep him, or I think that'll be a thing of they'll have an opponent in mind first.
If he doesn't get signed and he's, let's say, forced to fight in Cage Warriors or go to another promotion, is that going to like impact your decision of actually competing then on Cage Warriors again?
No, not at all. I think I just want to fight at the minute. I think I just want to get like a clean stretch of fights where I'm active and there's not these massive gaps between it, because each time I'm having like 6 months between a fight. So I just want activity. So any shows at all, I'm not gonna turn a show down for being, too small or for a purse or anything, or because it's not the right opportunity. I think that providing the fights, I'm fit and healthy at the time. I think it's just getting fights now and just getting busy and getting active, because time waits for no one, and I'm taking my time at the minute.
Matt, I have one for you. Where did you get me being Brazilian from? And my other one is what's going on with the old Instagram stories? Can you tell me about some of those? I love them every single day. I get good fun off them.
I gotta watch my tongue. I Instagram stories are that's why I had to make a separate Instagram. So does I couldn't.
Zuckerberg's a lizard,
I
is
think
he?
it was definitely getting in the way of stuff. No, he's I yeah, I I gotta be careful with what I say. I want to go.
You can plead the fifth if you want.
Like a Sean Strickland, like a tangent. Just start a rant and start slavering to the reporters, but flip it a bit. But I'll hold my tongue. As for you, your name is.
Well,
it's frozen.
You're still there, I think.
You're still there.
He's still there. Yeah, we can hear you. There's just about a 10-second delay, so it's
gonna...
probably horrific for everyone else to listen to.
It's lagging on my side.
Sure, just tell us
and then
the Quilch's name anyway.
The thing about you being Brazilian is your name's Quilcha, and it looks Portuguese. So you also always post about like Brazilian MMA team and Portuguese MMA team and stuff. It's
fair enough.
Yeah, no, we got a very good laugh out of that.
Fair enough.
You'll get it in a second.
Matt, the delay's a bit much here, but just finish on this. If you were to give us a few names for who you want to fight in the Cage Warriors featherweight division, is there anyone that comes to mind?
Yes, boys, I'll let you go. There's bad lag on this.
That's it. I think we.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
We'll let you go, Matt. We'll let you go.
Could you repeat
that? The lag is horrific. But we'll get you. We'll chat to you again soon. We'll have you on the podcast for a proper conversation where the internet's a bit better. Appreciate the time and have a great Christmas and New Year's. Or Merry Christmas.
Yes, thank you. You too, boys.
Happy New Year.
Thanks for joining us, Matt.
Obrigado.
Yeah, sorry about that. The delay was a little bit laggy there. So we'll definitely have Matt on again for another chat. A little bit down the line anyway. So
maybe before we let the two lads go, maybe like what would if you pick any standout moments of the year, I suppose, in Irish MMA, like what were your kind of favorite moments?
Henry Felipe, the old Peruvian necktie. It's great to see Henry come back and do so well, like in general. So great to have new faces, new Irish faces in KSW. Carl McNally has been a breath of fresh air as well. And we had Tommy Quinn there for a while, didn't have much luck. And then Pavel Polituo had a bit of a mixed bag of a year, but yeah, over my side, I think Carl McNally and Henry Felipe have provided a lot of entertainment for me. Then just in general, like I think the entire Irish scene this year has just been buzzing, and next year is going to be even better. And there's going to be plenty of opportunities in various promotions upcoming. So I can't wait to see what everybody is going to do, including yourselves.
And it was good to see you on the KSW broadcast as well. It was fantastic. The smile to the camera, everything, unbelievable. How did it happen?
So usually they have 9 or 10 fights. What they do with the trophy presentations is they give it to a sponsor. But they added, as far as I can tell, they added a 11th fight sort of late in the day, and I don't think they had a sponsor ready to take it. So they offered that out to me to do it, and I didn't mess it up, surprisingly. So I got to give the gold trophy to Shamad. Unfortunately, had to give the silver one to Carl. But yeah, it was another Irishman got into the cage by the end of the year, just as the year was closing out. So Ireland is starting to dominate KSW.
Indeed. That would have been something else if Carl had pulled it out of the bag that night. It would have been the picture that would have lasted for the ages as well. Maybe just going over to you, Andy, as well. Like Andy, the other Andy asked, too many fucking Andys here. Maybe some of your standout moments, Andy, of 2022 before we let you go, man. And thanks so much for joining us.
I think my standout moment is it was the IMA event. It brought together the whole community. We had all the gyms coming in, and then we had the Severe team were there. You had the boys from the Energize show, everything, Era MMA. It was great to see everyone come together, and I think I love what IMA is going to bring there with the national championships over the next few years. Just too many. It's too easy in amateur MMA to fight for belts, and as someone that likes structure, I love that this is going to bring a pattern of right who is actually the best amateur in Ireland. So that was my standout by a big win. I think Paul Hughes' win in Cage Warriors as well was sense.
Oh, you
Muted yourself there, Andy, somehow.
you muted yourself there, Andy, I think.
So I've just been chatting with for 30 seconds without muting, have I?
No. Yeah, we lost that Paul Hughes. Yeah, we lost that Paul Hughes.
I was saying, yeah, the IMA's Paul Hughes' victory was amazing, and Will Fleury as a tip man. You know, I've been watching this sport now for a hell of a long time, probably 16 or 17 years at this stage. And no fighters make me nervous anymore, except for Will. I can barely look at the screen when Will is fighting. So to see him go so well this year was fantastic.
It's the sideburns, is this? That's what puts you off.
It's just the nerves of having a tip man in there. We only have Will and really Colin Maher that have fought to any high level. So it's just great to see. And another great moment as well was you fucking up the Wolfstones and the Chieftains as well.
No.
Community,
it was great to chat to you anyway, Andy, and have a good new year.
All right, boys, I'll sign out. So catch you later.
Take it easy. Thanks for joining us, lads.
And as one champ leaves, the champ is here. Nadine Abbott-Bisses. How are you? Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, lads.
How's it going, Nadine? Thanks for joining us.
No worries.
How was the Christmas for you? All good?
Yeah, all good.
Nice. So we're here doing the year in review anyway. So we're going to just ask you straight up, what's kind of your assessment of your year? Obviously, you had a belter of a year in the amateur ranks at the start of the year, winning the gold medal at IMAF, picking up a couple of titles and everything before moving over to the professional ranks. What's your assessment of the year overall for you? Being it like your first half year as a professional, as well as finishing off your amateur career as well.
I think the start of the year couldn't have gone any better for me. Like, won the Worlds, won the Nationals, won a belt then. Then took my pro debut then in September, and went downhill from there. No, it was good. It's good out fight now, but I was in bits afterwards though. I hurt my leg after, so I wasn't really training that much after. So I've just kind of got back into it.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna fight now in March.
Oh, nice. That's good. Obviously we wanted to kind of shine a light on some of the positive things that happened for you, obviously winning the gold and stuff like that as well. But you know, probably the one that's going to stick out to you mostly is your professional debut. Like, what are the feelings after the fact? And look, it was a tough fight, and you lost against a really good fighter as well on the night. Did you feel that you performed up to your levels, or was there something missing that night from your regard?
I thought she was just a bit on the ball more than me. Like, you know, her shots were just connecting way more than mine were. I thought, like, the first round, I think she took. The second round was kind of 50-50, but then she just started attacking me leg then. And I didn't throw any leg kicks back myself. And she just knew that then and just kept at me leg for the rest of the fight then. I was just sticking to the boxing, like, whereas I should have gotten to start trying a few kicks myself, you know.
Oh, yeah, 100% it happens. But was there a big adjustment for you moving over from the amateur ranks to the professional when you actually got in there and started competing, like 3 5-minute rounds and elbows and everything like that? Was it obviously you're training for it, but was it different maybe when you got in there, or what was the feelings like when you were in the cage?
I got hit with a couple of elbows and I didn't really notice and like feel them right in there. But the 4 ounce gloves, you can feel that the difference in them. I felt that. See me face afterwards.
Yeah, like that's the thing that we've been talking about in trying to, what's the best route for amateur fighters and what kind of settings or scenarios that we can create to get them get like amateur young fighters ready to move over to the professional ranks. Do you feel the way you came up in IMAF and also in the regional scene, just say in regards to amateur fights, 3-3-minute rounds, do you think that coming up, maybe having like those more 5-minute rounds to kind of develop rounds a little bit more, because it is a big adjustment. 2 minutes might not seem like a long time, but it is quite a long time when you're in there in the cage. Like, in regards, what would your opinion be? And like, would you like to see amateur fights and the kind of that scene mirror more professional settings more? Obviously, without the elbows and other stuff, fighter safety is very important as well. But I think like a simple thing, like a simple adjustment, like making maybe 2 5-minute rounds rather than 3 3-minute rounds or something like that, kind of would get you maybe a little bit more prepared. What would your opinion be on that?
Yeah, I think what the UK saying do is good now with the 5 3-minute rounds for a title. That's like shows when you're ready, when you're fighting for a title. Like you're nearly ready to go pro, but you're doing 15 minutes in there. Like if you're able to stick up to 15 minutes, then it's like right now you're ready for a pro. I know it's still a 3-minute round, but like at the end of the day, it's 15 minutes. It's a 15-minute fight. 15-minute fight. You're gonna do a pro as well. Yeah, I think that's why better. Doing the 5 3 minutes for a title, like why not do it? If you think your next step is going to be pro, why not do 5 3 minutes?
100%. I agree as well. And for you, what would be your assessments or changes that you'd be liking to make going into your next fight in March? Obviously, you're looking to go back in to Combat in March again and compete under their banner. Is that kind of what's going to happen?
Yeah. I'm gonna fight for them now in March.
Nice.
Yeah, no, just kind of more running, I think. Anyway, I kind of, like Andy always has us running maintenance, and I kind of neglected it the last time. Seen we were out.
He didn't miss Stevens' day. You were all out. We saw the pictures.
Yeah, no, my cardio wasn't like 100%. I don't think in the fight. If you had seen me at the Worlds, like I was fresh in every fight. I was ready to go in every fight. But no, just back in the gym and working hard.
How do you feel weight class wise, Nadine? Like obviously, like you're undersized a lot of the time. Like I remember it was one of your last amateur fights where you got the win, but like you're fighting someone who's like way taller, just looked physically bigger. And I know like for your atomweight fights, you don't even cut weight to that. Like you're having full breakfast on the day, so you're kind of going in there with a disadvantage size wise to begin with. Like what do you think about from a weight class perspective? Like where would you want to be fighting long term?
Yeah, well, definitely atomweight. Like I'm walking around the 48 kilo like always. But I think I definitely need to try bulk up a little bit and do a bit of a cut. Like when I was over there at Combache, like everyone's walking around dying like in sweatsuits and all, like everything. They're all getting stuff, and I'm gone down having me brekkie. Like
yeah, you were saying that to me. I thought that was hilarious. Like it's just quite uncommon for a fighter. You were like, give me 2 breakfasts there and throw on 2 sausages.
I think at the IMAF, like at the amateur the same day weigh-in, I felt fresher than everyone else, like because I wasn't cutting any weight. I was having my breakfast that morning. I was relaxing and that. But like when you have the 24 hours to refuel, when they're getting 24 hours to put it all back into them, they're obviously going into fresher fighter than me. Like, and they have obviously a couple of kilo on that on me. So I think definitely need to bulk up a little bit now for my next one.
Did you notice that in the cage, with maybe in the clinch? Because, we'd seen you time and time again be dominant in the clinch and being able to secure other people's backs. Did you find it a little bit more difficult when you did make your professional debut that time?
Yeah, definitely. Like I could feel in all the exchanges, she was stronger than me. And I was kind of putting me on the back foot a bit because I was like usually I'm the one that's dominating this exchange,
It must kind of fuck with you mentally, like when you're used to being the dominant one, and then to mid fight be like, oh, hang on a second, this isn't the norm.
Yeah. It's like she just threw me down, and I was like, that's not what was supposed to happen there.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing about getting in there and fighting, is because when you find out those kind of things, it's always almost the hardest way to find them out. You know what I mean? But
Did the fact that your opponent changed so much in the build-up? I think you had 4 different opponents in the build-up. Did that have any impact in kind of game planning and everything for the fight?
Yeah, I think I think I had about 6 or 7 that weren't announced, but I think 3 of them were actually announced. Like I was kind of just getting different people here and there. It was like, oh, you might be fighting this person. Oh, you're fighting that person. Blah blah blah. I was a bit of messing around with it, I didn't really care, to be honest. I was just like, oh, I'll make me proud I'd be on that date. I know I'm fighting on that date, but yeah, when it came down to it, it was completely different to what I had expected. That I was going out what opponent I was expecting, so it was a bit of a difference. But sure, look, what can you do?
Not a whole lot, and you're not the only person that kind of had that to deal with that kind of thing in combat as well. It seems to be a little bit common there, and these things do happen in fighting. Would it make you think a little bit differently about it, maybe moving forward? If just say you were getting ready for March again, you had a couple of opponent pullouts, are you just the person who just wants to get in there and fight? And like you said, get the date, I'm going to fight in that day. I don't care who's facing off against me. Or do you think giving yourself the time to prepare accordingly, especially at the professional ranks as well, is going to do you justice in the long run?
Yeah, I think it probably would have done me a bit of justice there if I had even had a month or two to know. I think I knew my opponents about 10 days beforehand for the last one. But I'd say even a month or two, just to know that's who you're fighting. That's it. But yeah, we'll see anyway. We'll see in March.
That's it. The Ross from Ross Caldwell said Nadine Abbott Bissett Higgins Montaigne is coming for everyone's back in 2023. hilarious. But no, look at Nadine. Look at, obviously it was a disappointing end to it, but I don't think you should be forgetting. You should be very proud of what you achieved at the start of the year at the world stage and the IMAFs as well, because MMA is the kind of sport where you will suffer the highest the highs and the lowest the lows. But we were delighted to see you on the international stage. We were just talking about it. We were trying to go through the year in review, and we talked about January, and one of the first things we talked about was your success at the IMAFs and the excitement around that, and just basically going in and wiping the floor with most of your opponents, and it was great to see, and you had a brilliant year overall, if you ask me, no matter whether it didn't work out for you in the professional ranks as well. So it's great to see you, and now you're fighting on the international scene as well, and we're very excited to see you getting in there and performing again in March as well.
Thanks a lot, lads.
Yeah, great for women's MMA in Ireland as well. Before you went over to the tournament, we had Andy on, and he was saying watch out for the girls here, watch out for the women, and you were the ones that outperformed the lads in the tournaments. And I think there's a great stable of Irish women breaking through now with yourself and Shauna, and obviously Leah and Sinead are further on with their careers, Dee Begley, Danny McCormick, but there's heaps. That must be exciting for you as well as an Irish woman to be kind of breaking through. And historically it's always the lads that kind of get the shine, and now it's the women seem to be taking more back the spotlight a bit more.
Yeah, I think the women definitely are now in Ireland, aren't they?
Definitely in the Abbott Bissett household anyway.
Definitely here, yeah. Jamie doesn't get a look in around here.
Quick one for me there. So earlier this year we saw Sinead and Leah. Andy's been stirring the shit like no tomorrow, trying to get Shauna and Danny. And as far as I know, there's probably about 2 atomweights in Ireland, and I can think one's from Limerick. So you have Catherine. There 2 from my knowledge. So Catherine and Katie Sawler trains in SBG. Is there any hope of one of them happening down the line and having another Ireland versus Ireland scrap while we're at it?
Yeah, I think Katie Sawler fought in Combache there as well, didn't she?
She did, yeah. What would you think of that one?
I wouldn't mind that one, yeah.
That's a scrap we love.
You know what? I think Sean has been calling for Victor to come to Dublin. Shauna against Danny, me against Katie. There's the fights to make.
That would be sweet. That would be sweet. So that would mean if Invicta did come calling in your direction, that's something that would tickle your fancy. You'd like to be involved with a promotion like Invicta as well. Obviously, with all due respect to Combatche as well, who you're contracted with now. But the kind of platform that they can produce and the level of competition, it's pretty exciting. I think, in my opinion, I think if you're coming up in women's mixed martial arts, I'd be looking only towards Invicta FC. I think they provide a fantastic platform for all women fighters, and also the route to the UFC too, which is obviously the ultimate goal for you as well.
Yeah, I think it's the number one organization for women's MMA, isn't it, in the world? Like, it's the number one where they all want to go to. So, yeah, it is something that I would be looking to down the line.
Nice. Well, Nadine, we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And like I said, congratulations on a very successful 2022. And we're very looking forward to seeing you in 2023. Hopefully, we can get an announcement coming soon for your fight. Is anything real close? Has there been any names discussed for your?
No names yet. Just a told match. So.
Just a told match. That's great. Well, we keep our.
That's Kombache then, is it?
Yeah, Kombache. Yeah.
Nice.
100%. We'll keep our ear to the ground, as they say about that one, and we'll look forward to seeing you getting back in there and continuing on in your professional career, Nadine. Thanks for joining us. Happy New Year to you, and we wish you all the best for 2023. I'm sure we'll be talking to you sometime along the way anyway.
Yeah, thanks a lot, lads.
Thanks for having on, Nadine.
Thanks.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Lovely job. And just the three of us again, lads.
Oh, Jesus, lads.
Hectic going.
Marathon, isn't it, lads?
Yeah.
We're going.
Unreal.
We may or may not have more guests. Who knows? But sure, we'll keep on trucking and
we
keep going.
We'll talk away here. Look at someone that has been mentioned. We talked about time and time again. Sean O'Bannon has had a fantastic 2022 along with a fantastic 2021. So her trajectory is on the up and up right now. And she capped off another great win at Cage Legacy. And top of that, she picked up a fantastic win at Invicta FC as well in the latter stages of 2022. And it's really exciting to see the rise of Sean and us being there along the way, along with everybody else as well. And it's going to be up and up again in 2023 for Sean, isn't it, Quilsha?
Oh, completely. Sure. This past year, it's crazy to think she it was her pro debut this year, and she's 4-0 now. To think that it was only just this year turned pro and has gone on this massive rise to a point where we're like, oh yeah, she's probably 2 fights, maybe 3 fights away from a title is just crazy. You don't see that very often, and the impact she's had in the sport and how much that's promoted the sport amongst women and just in general is just insane. And yeah, the future's so bright that you can't help but get on board with this hype and follow it all the way and see this could be something really special if it with the way it's going at the moment. So a massive year ahead, but wow, what a year she's had! and not even just a year, but 2 years.
Yeah,
she's not been
2 years.
in ages now. She's flying it.
Yeah. You could forgive her for taking a bit of time off now over Christmas and coming in, I don't know, second quarter or something of 2023 because as you said, she's had something 9 or 10 fights and she's come back as a mother. And now, but we'll park that conversation for a second. Kenny Mokanwana, what's the crack? Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, boys. Sorry to interrupt your conversation there.
You're all good, Kenny. You're all good.
We're just talking shite as usual.
We're talking about people who had a big year, and you definitely had a big year in 2022, man. You must be delighted with everything that's gone down. It's been a very successful year for you. You've really burst onto the scene, and you must be delighted with it. Kind of tell us in your own words what it meant for you, everything, obviously the win in UAE Warriors and the Bellator win as well. It's been a real great year for you, man, and congratulations.
Yeah, thanks a million. It's went pretty good. I can't complain. Obviously, it was a good performance, but after every fight, I'm always looking at the next test, obviously, and I don't want to stay. Was it in March or something? Was it March? But I don't want to stay my head in the last fight because I have another test. So on to the next, as they say,
Yeah, that's it. The big question is, Kenny, do you have your route to the Tree Arena sussed out now for the weigh-ins? That was one of the biggest stuff.
Giving us heart attacks.
I heard that the last 5 pounds of weight came off in sweat in the car, worrying if you were going to make the weigh-ins for your last.
I didn't jump on the scales. I just see the time. Like, see when you're cutting weight, when you're cutting the time goes so slow, and then when you get out and you have to go to the weigh-ins, like, a minute's like a minute's going so quick. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, next time we'll have that sussed out. But I'm always so shit with timing. But like Kane Musa was just telling me Bellator don't play. They'll really take your fight off the card. That would have been gone. They don't play no games.
No joke, man. Yeah, he's no joke. He'd fine you and he'd take you off the
He'll
card.
sell your firstborn for missing weight.
Yeah, a few of them were getting fined as well for the rules meeting as well. So yeah, I'm not trying to play any games with them.
Yeah. Now, was that your fault or was that whoever's driving's fault? You can throw your brother under the bus here now if you want. Save yourself.
It was his fault, yeah, boys. I just know. It's all him. It's all him.
You get from that one now.
I don't know. We literally left the car outside the arena. Like, I was like, if they take it, it's all G. Like, as long as I make the way, it doesn't matter. Yeah, 100%.
You know, it was obviously an emotional. Like, it was the ups and downs of fight week when it was the craziest of getting there. You obviously had to fight itself, an incredible performance, and an emotional, moment in the cage after with your brother. Now that we're 6 months or 3 months on, how do you reflect on that Bellator debut? It was pretty perfect from what I could see.
Yeah, it's pretty perfect. Obviously, in my interview, I said obviously, I could have done better, but in the situation that I was in, like under the pressure, I felt obviously I said I felt a bit weird in the cage. Like I'm like until the fight started, and obviously because I'm just like you, I'm just a big fan of the sport. So when I'm seeing like all these things I see on TV, and like I'm seeing the Bellator like logo on the cage, I'm like, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm seeing I fought in UAE in the Etihad Arena, which is bigger than Tree Arena, but obviously the crowd and all is just madness. You know what I mean? You like building up to the fight, you think about it in your head, like what it's gonna be like, but when you're like actually in there, like it just blew me away. And I was just on a hyper buzz the whole night, as you can tell.
Am I in?
You're in, Gary. You're in, Gary.
Sorry, Gary, bro.
We're just
What's good, Gary, bro? I was trying to twist this to make it the same as these boys, but yeah, I don't know.
These fighting technology. This is your biggest battle since
you should have sent a text and that was it, mid conversation. Feel like a dickhead.
Yeah, I'm the same, bro. I was like, how do I leave?
You're all good. Everyone's welcome. We're rolling in and out here today. It's a bit of crazy. Merry Christmas, Gary. How are you?
Merry Christmas, lads.
Merry Christmas.
Kenny was just giving us the rundown of his last win in Bellator and fighting in front of a Tree Arena. I'm saying that's a goal of yours to be fighting there someday.
yeah, 100%. He needs to fight that stutter. That's what someone said. He said that. Someone said that to him. Yeah.
No chill, Gary, bro.
How did the boys in Blanche react to the post-fight interview with John McCarthy, Kenny?
Yeah, the reading Blanche FC and all posting me on the football page. Everything, man, is mad. What's his name? Ariel's mate. Ariel Awani's mates on from Blanche as well. Yeah. He was at me as well, so it was good. Like the response was a madness. So yeah, I was blown away. Like I was still on a hyperbus the next day. Like it was mad. Like it took ages to wear off the adrenaline and things. Like it was bleeding madness. Like, but yeah, it was good. It was good, boys. Good buzz.
And you'll be back then again next year as well, Kenny. In February, all actions now. Did you get to enjoy the Christmas now, or are you in full on camp getting ready for February, or what's happening?
Nah, from January the 3rd, I think the gym's back to normal. So from then, I'm gonna like no joking around, serious. That's when my training camp properly starts. I'm always training, but like I'm gonna take it up a gear in January when we're back.
Nice. Couple of turkey sandwiches there now. Then will be had
That's
before January
Two
3rd. Then,
turkeys, yeah. We'll put
What's the
these
go-to
selection boxes
Christmas,
away, and then
yeah.
yeah, love it.
What's the go-to chocolate for Christmas now? Would you be a Quality Street or Celebrations or Heroes?
Weird enough, man. I love that Terry's orange, man.
Oh,
Yeah,
Terry chocolate
I
orange.
love it.
I think I think you either love that or you either hate it, but I love that Terry orange.
What about you, Gary?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Heroes. I like Heroes. I like the Eclairs.
Yeah, the eclairs are diamond. Yeah, they're no pun intended there, obviously. Yeah, no, they're deadly as well. Gary, let's talk a little bit about your year. We asked Kenny a little bit about his year, and you had majorly successful year as well, like starting off in the IMAFs.
Beat Kenny's record.
Every week you had another belt shown up to it. Yeah. Every week he's showing up to the gym with a belt.
Is this amateur belt? What was your record, Kenny, for amateur belts?
I had 4 belts. I remember when Gary came in with 2. I'm like, man, fair enough. He's like, how would you have? He's like, I have 4. He's just nodded his head like that. He's like, all right. 2 months later, he's coming back with me 2 more. Yeah.
So how many did you pick up then this year, Gary? You bit the record.
I picked up 5 this year. Yeah, 5.
Nice.
Yeah, I picked up all my belts this year.
Slow year, was it?
Yeah. So like a little bit slow with Jordan Bradshaw. Jordan Bradshaw and Keith fought a little bit more than me, so I'm a bit annoyed with that.
How many gonna have next year? So
yeah, next year hopefully with the IMAFs and stuff. You know what I mean? I'm looking to fucking not the close one. Maybe towards the end of the next year. That's the one I'd be looking to fight on. So 5 fights and that for the gold medal.
Love it.
And then whoever many regions here, or like whatever you call it, regional bouts.
100%.
You already booked for someone in Shockanaw, is it?
Sorry, yeah. I'm in March for Shockanaw, against Adam Game.
Perfect. So the goal would the overall goal for you be targeting that gold medal at the IMAFs, Gary? Is that
that's the main thing before going pro. Isn't it? Like everyone wants to have that on the resume, especially nowadays. It's a good thing to achieve for.
100%.
Would you be happy with the world one, or would you be happy with the Europeans one, or did you want the gold one?
The world's is obviously the best, isn't it? Like I'm not going to be bleeding crying about a European gold, but if you had to pick one, you'd obviously pick the world's, isn't it?
Were you disappointed with how the last one went? Because I remember I was watching it, and it was the fight you had where you almost popped up an armbar at some point, either in round 2 or round 3, and nearly caught your man in the one. Yeah. But like, were you a little bit disappointed at in the very end how it ended, because it was so close and you looked like you were about to pull it off?
Yeah, like when I fucking lose, man, I do be bleeding heartbroken, to be honest, bro. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to get in pictures or fucking. You know what I mean? Like I'm proper devastated if I lose, to be honest, bro. Yeah. Cause like I'm after putting everything into it. You know what I mean? Like I'm delighted when I win, and you can't just be okay when you lose. Like it's high highs and low lows, isn't it?
It's all or nothing type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was fucking fuming when I lost the Wolves, to be honest. I was in a fucking tough place, and I just really wanted to win the gold medal. I really wanted to win it, and just I wasn't my year that year, so just made me realise I had to come home, work harder, look for the tough fights to take and take them.
You'd some year afterwards, and there's that's the one. Paul Brown's put it up there now with the Kimura and Jamie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was mad. Yeah, it was mad. Like, I remember watching Sinead on the Bellator, and I remember she didn't finish late, and I was slagging her in the gym. I was like, "What the fuck?" And then I don't know. That was obviously fucking the powers that be, fucking slagging me, showing me I didn't know how to finish on either. It was a good slap in the face. Face.
They call that a teachable moment.
Yeah, no, but like, people are like, you should have tried to break it, and we did. No, I really tried to break it, like. So people are like, oh, you should have really. I was like, man, we tried to squeeze on that and nearly shit me jocks. I tried to break his and then he was bleeding, smacking me with it. Then the next round, man, I was like, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, that was insane.
Yeah, no, fair play to him. Fair fucking play.
Unreal stuff.
Do you reckon you'll see each other again before you both turn pro?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, sure. I'll see him if I'm in Ryan or if he's an SPG. Say how you doing, know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm all right, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't always have to be in a pair of gloves and taking the head off each other.
That's true. Do you and Kenny train 1-to-1 much at all in SPG or no?
If I'm looking for a rest round, I go with Kenny. No, I'm only joking.
Come here. Since we've got 2 SPG guys in, who's the biggest shit talker in SPG?
I'd say myself.
Ooh. It's hard, isn't it? There's Sharif, there's Nahom, there's you.
You know what? You're right.
The rankings are there. There's pound for pound rankings. You're in the pound for pound rankings. SPG shy talk.
Yeah,
but there's competition there.
They don't really start. Nahom and Shadow start. They go in. That's how the first league.
Dude, that's already an own Sheridan, is it?
Yeah. Shadow and Nahom, yeah.
Pedro, what about Pedro Carvalho? I saw a wedding.
Oh yeah, Pedro's bad. Yeah, Pedro's up there.
Pedro have their own rivalry. Pedro and Will do their own thing. They have like a big rivalry between them two.
Pedro's a shy talker, but I think like Gary and that they're coming with bars. They're coming to hurt you with it. Coming with like vicious intent. You know what I mean?
Is that more important than anything else now to be bringing into SPG a level of shite talking so that you can compete with the very best in there, not alone on the mats, but when it gets to all verbal disputes as well, eh?
Listen, you can't avoid that, not mean, so if you got top, everyone knows about it. If you're getting back that day, people will know. Yeah?
I'll ask a few more of these. Who is the hardest trainer in SPG?
For me, Richie. Yeah, Richie's doesn't let you leave the mats for. You know what I mean? Like for water, you know, when the timer goes for when the timer goes for the round to start, you better be rolling, you know. So for me, maybe Richie. Yeah,
Richie
Sloan has some hard circuits at the end, you know, burnouts.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that, to be honest. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah. I'm trying to think hard just to be difficult about things. But it probably is Richie, to be honest.
Yeah, and then last one, who out of, you can't say yourselves now, who would be kind of the breakout star or maybe the under the radar fighter in SPG right now?
I think Cedric Doumbé.
Yeah.
But I don't think people don't know about this guy.
Yeah, you're right about that one, Kenny. You're right about that. Yeah. Some people don't know. Yeah, I didn't really know, to be honest. And then that fella is an absolute different level.
Is he not a former Glory champion?
Yeah, he is.
I feel like obviously, but in this country, I feel like I don't think he gets I don't hear his name come up too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was supposed to get the UFC debut in Paris this year, but then I think the regulatory body in France denied him that opportunity because of his record. He's only 3-0 in mixed martial arts right now, but obviously, as Greals just said, former Glory champion, serious striking credentials. And it'd be interesting to see. Hopefully he can get a few scraps now in 2023 and really break onto the scene. But like as striking credentials go, he's unbelievable, world class. He's obviously making great waves in the old grappling department as well, and doing the rounds with you guys as well, is he?
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. He just has just freakish athleticism. You know what I mean? And his grappling, he's learning the grappling quick as well, and you can see it in his fights. He's not easy to take down either.
No, he's not. He's a blade.
That's all positive things to hear. We've been talking the entire time about, we're looking back on the year, and obviously we kind of talked a little bit about your own, but like, are there any standout moments in Irish MMA for you guys? Like if you're fans of the sport as well, I'm sure that stick out to you.
The year. I guess that the thing in SPG was this year, weren't there? Like the first trials and stuff like that, weren't they?
The Nationals,
Nationals.
Yeah, the Nationals, that was pretty fucking cool to see. You know, that was it was fun to watch. I didn't participate myself, but it was good to see that actually happen for once, you know. That was, I guess, a big part of it. And then the Bellator card, to be honest, man, that was like, and anyway for me, like as an SPG fighter, that was like a it was only Peter was the only one who ended up didn't winning that night. But like it was like how many fights? Like
This is the one in just gone in September, is it?
Yeah, 10 or 11, was it? Like 10 out of 11? Or it was a crazy amount of fights that won. Know what I mean? Like, unfortunately, Peter didn't get the win. He was fighting out, Benson Henderson, an elite level person. But for that, like, it showed it was good, like, I thought.
100%.
Yeah.
It was deadly to see fucking Brad Gatone as well winning the Brave title. I think it was this year, wasn't it? He won that the Brave title as well. So like, I
and
think
defended it as well this year as well. So he did a great year.
The Irish fighters, I don't think have really done as well as maybe they like we thought that, like a few of them would. You know what I mean? So for him to win the world titles was good, like inspiration for us. You know what I mean?
Big time. It's been like a real successful year as a whole for SBG, like with everybody winning, like Will winning the UAE Warriors title and then going on and winning in PFL. Nate Kelly has been having a great year. The two of you lads
shows that Ireland is up there, you don't
100%.
have to be from America or bleeding Chechnya, not even Chechnya, Dagestan, you know what I mean? Like, you don't need to be from these countries to be up there with the world best, It's always like America, and now Dagestan is on a pedestal, and Russia, and you know what I mean, all them countries, like we always think little of ourselves, but we're up there when you think about it.
Yeah, 100%. And like, who would you lads say now? Would we be expecting a couple of big signings to be major organizations next year, UFC, Bellator, anything like that? Who do you think is going to be the next biggest signing coming out of SBG?
Hard to say, not Lee Hammond, but that's my opinion. Yeah,
100%. No, it's a fair assessment too, Gary. It's a fair assessment too. He's probably up there, one of the leading prospects in the country right now overall, and being able to get in there, like, it's very exciting for us looking from the outside in. Obviously, your guys are in there and you're engrossed into it, but fellas like yourselves and Lee and lots of other SBG fighters amongst other gyms across the country as well. I think Irish MMA is in a real good place right now. And, just fighting a couple of hurdles as well. Once the regulation and the recognition of the sport comes in, that's going to help the likes of you lads as well. And hopefully it happens sooner rather than later as well. But look, it's brilliant for us to see, and it gives us something to talk about every week as well. We wouldn't have anything to talk about unless these stories were going to be popping up and fighters to talk about as well. So we feel very lucky as well, looking from the outside in.
Gary, here's one for you.
Yeah.
How many different fighters in SBG have you used their names on the Lewis so far this year?
I don't know what you're on about. I've never been. I've never won.
Gary doesn't take the Lewis.
What have you now? Yeah, and I have gloves and the high vis and everything.
I say it again. We couldn't hear you over Kenny's laughing there.
Sorry, it's on view.
They're on the ground on the way to the gym. That's what I have to say about that situation.
I wonder, we should have maybe got Kieran Clark on, or one of the boys on, see if your face is on the side of the Lewis's. Does that mean you have to pay for a ticket as well? Because if not,
we don't know. Yeah, Derek Kelly gets the Lewis pretty often. Kieran drives, but Derek Kelly does be on the Lewis with me.
Yeah.
Actually, Kenny, are you getting on the Lewis? What's the story?
I don't know. I've been trying to check it. I've been trying to see, like, maybe next time.
No, but I mean, like, your face needs to be on the side of it now after that submission there.
Yeah.
Maybe
next one. I'll make sure. I'll make sure the next one.
Yeah. Have you been looking much at Craig McIntosh?
The day they sent me the contract, I looked him up, see what he's like. Since then, not really. Yeah, not really. I'll let Dave and John suss him out, and then go from there.
Yeah, and are we going to see Franz back in soon?
I hope so. Every day I'm being asking him, here, did you get a fight? Yeah, share from the management. He's just like, I'm waiting for, like, I don't know if I should be saying, but yeah, he's waiting for a certain promotion. But I'm like, I think just for me, I want him to chase the UFC, just for my own selfish reasons. But obviously with money and things, like, whatever promotions are there. But for me, I want him to go UFC just for me. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, we'll see anyway what the next year brings. Hopefully he gets something this year soon.
Absolutely.
Gary, what does the perfect 2023, before we let you lads go, and thanks so much for joining us, lads. We're getting close to wrapping up now. Gary, and we'd love to have you on again, the two of yous, down the line as well for a proper conversation. This is a kind of a live stream fallback on 2022. What's the perfect 2023 look like for you, Gary? Just say you're here talking to us again this time next year. What would be the ideal scenario?
Just with basically a lot of fights and a lot of wins and a lot of experience gains, you know, and ready to turn pro basically at the end of 2023. I'd like to have even made me pro debut, or depending on the IMAF schedule, a gold medal around me neck,
100%.
Yeah, and cementing me place in Ireland as number one in the UK, you know, that's like, I already feel like I'm there, I'm at the top, but the hard part is staying at the top now, that's what they say,
Big time.
Yeah, you must be up around there already. Now, where are you in the Topology rankings?
Right now I'm number one. I know maybe I'm back down to number two because your man Tommy and Joe fought. Yeah, Tommy and Joe fought, and Joe won on that one. And it was me, Tommy and Joe, or me, Joe and Tommy. So I'm up there. You know, I was one for a while.
You're still number one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, see again, I'm playing underselling myself.
Quilch after switching it there on the live, so he is on the spot there. Yeah, so that's
so
great.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. I'm number one at the moment. Yeah,
Love
and
it.
I just want to continue to hold that place. You know.
Well, thanks for joining us, lads, and we wish you both the best in your respective careers in 2023. And like I said, we'll be talking to you again down the line. Hopefully you'll be able to come on and join and chat to us before or after a fight next year as well. We appreciate you taking the time out. Congratulations on both of you for a very successful 2022 as well. And we appreciate you giving us the chance to come on and have a chat with you there.
Cheers, boys. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks, lads. You up, Lance? You up the flats?
Thanks very much.
You up, Lance? The flats. Come on.
Kenny, I'll see you in the gym, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, see you later. Yeah. I remember what you said. Yeah. Easy round there.
Gary's getting tomorrow.
Oh my goodness.
Thanks, lads.
Take it easy, lads. Thanks. Oh, that's brilliant.
That was a good crack.
No, and there's not too much more we can add. Look, we tried our best to get through the year. Look, we'll wrap it up ourselves. Yeah, I knew I was never going to happen. April, and we skipped September, and then but whatever.
I'm amazed we made it that far.
Maybe we just look at like the standard, or like list out a few
some of our own moments as well. It's kind of hard to name everybody. We try our best to name everybody, and anyone that we've forgotten about, we do apologize. But Andy, maybe to you first, like just maybe summarize your 2022 for Irish MMA in your own words.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a very I feel like it's a very transitional period in Irish MMA at the moment, and like there's for a number of years there was a lull, and I feel like, and I don't know if it's just because we've started the podcast and we're looking at this so intensely at the moment, but I'm getting very excited about what's going on. I think there's been some amazing moments. Obviously, Rhys McKee winning the title in Belfast in June with that insane fight against Justin Burlinson, for him to kind of rebound from the UFC losses and have a resurgence in his career to where, maybe another win or two, or who knows what can happen even with the late pullout, and we could see him back in the UFC. I thought that was an incredible moment. Paul Hughes' win, obviously, over Jordan Vucenic, again, another sensational performance for him to do that to Jordan when they had such a close fight the previous time, and to come through all the injuries that Paul's come through. That was really incredible to me. There's been so many standout performers as well. Like we kind of put together a bunch of notes heading into this, because there's so much to cover from a full year. But like James Sheen went 3-0, two finishes. Caelan Loughran, like you talked about him earlier on, he really broke out this year. Ryan Shelley, I feel like Ryan Shelley, he maybe didn't break out as much as the likes of a Caelan Loughran, but still he's gone 3-0. He obviously, I don't know if like the split decision versus Matt Elliott kind of put a hamper on it. It doesn't for me. No, that like to fact to go in there and finish Josh Reed in the first round is a serious statement. So like he's right up there in that division as well. Ian Gary, you kind of forget.
Let's spend a bit of time. Can we spend a little bit of time on Ian Gary?
Let's talk
like
Ian Gary.
Ireland's only UFC fighter right now, currently. Hopefully that will change. But he had a good year. Like, I mean, look, he's been off the radar for a couple of months now. He's bringing his child into the world. He's settling down into his marriage, and some people would be criticizing of him not being active, but what's the rush? He needs to. He kind of segregated that section of it. 2-0 this year so far. Let's not forget he picked up 2 UFC wins, so that's not a bad year's work. And 2023 for me is going to be a very interesting year for Ian Garry, where there's going to be an opportunity for him to kind of propel himself, not for me into the top 15 or to the top 10 of the division, but definitely right on the precipice. And I feel I'd be interested to see what our conversation about Ian Garry is going to be like this time next year, because we're coming into the stage where he's going to be looking to be fighting. I'd love to see him fight. I'd love to see him fight 3 times next year if possible. I spoke on the UFC year review, and I gave 3 possible opponents. I can't remember, but I actually mapped it out perfectly, to be honest, where, you need to give him a challenge, and then another challenge, maybe a wrestling challenge, and then maybe a legend or a veteran in the division. And the names escape me right now, but what would you like to see for Ian Garry and your Quilchu, whichever one of you wants to take that one first?
Activity, but I don't think there's a need to rush either. He seems to have a lot, he's going through a big period in his life at the moment that it's, I can't just expect him to hop in the cage in January, February. So I think activity maybe from March, April onwards. I'd love to see him getting a fight in, let's say if there's a lot on the London card, so at least it's nearby, so the Irish fans could go see them. I think the Irish fans would love something like that. I think if we do see him active next year, I think he could bring a card to Dublin eventually. Maybe not next year, but the year after for sure. And with Ian, it's just, look at that. Yeah, I think I agree with the Barbarena one. I think Barbarena would be kind of a good.
I'm trying to dig out the names that I picked, but definitely
Matt Brown before. I think I picked Matt Brown or someone like that.
Yeah, something along those lines. When it comes to challenges, whereas that you should be building towards one of those fights at the end of the year, but it needs to be a better test than Gabe Green or somebody.
Bring back a roided up Donald Cerrone there and let him loose on him.
Well, another name that I brought out, someone like Jake Matthews next, somebody like that next. That would be a good test for him as well.
Veteran as well,
a good veteran. Like that's the kind of challenges I think we're going to be seeing Ian Garry that's what he should be taking as well. And then building towards your Ponzinibbio, building towards your Barbarena or something like that, where you could, or maybe somebody like Kevin Holland or someone like that down the line. That's what you want to be looking at.
You think
Kevin Holland is let's be real here, lads. Kevin Holland,
is he middleweight now, though? No,
he's a welterweight. He fought Wonderboy in his last fight. So those are that's why it's going to get exciting. Yeah, Nico Price, another great option. There is options there for him, where we need to see it. Go ahead, Andy.
No, I was just saying there's a bunch of options. Like, is Tim Means still fighting? He is, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still knocking around there. Yeah, he's still knocking around. I think, someone along those lines as well, where you're building up. Look, obviously you're giving him a little bit more of a step up than what he had in Gabe Green the last time, and there's a good one. Gunnar Nelson is another option as well. That would be one that would definitely go down well. I'd definitely watch that. But it's exciting with Ian Garry, lads. You know what I mean? We have a guy who's up and coming. If he seems to be being matched well, obviously we've seen in the UFC a lot of harder matches for like Reese McKee, who was unlucky. He came in and got kind of run through the ringer.
Yeah. It feels like Ian's getting the Paddy Pimblett treatment, but Ian actually has the higher ceiling.
And I wouldn't even think that he's getting the Paddy. I don't even think he's getting the Paddy Pimblett treatment, because I think he's already beaten better fighters than what Paddy has in their own respective divisions, to be honest. And I think that Ian has surrounded himself with good people who are helping him in making these decisions and what fighters he's fighting against do, which helps. I truly believe that, because you don't want to throw a guy like Ian Garry into the mix too fast, because you can be chewed up by the juggernaut of the UFC, especially in the welterweight division. you have to remember the guys who are at the top of that division, the Leon Edwardses, the Kamaru Usmans, plus the guys who are coming up as well, and Hamzat Chimaev, if he does choose to stay at welterweight, and Shavkat Rakhmonov. You cannot compare Ian Gary to those guys yet. I think he needs that time to develop into those type of fighters, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. I would like to see him build towards whoever they match him up with at the start or the end of the year, but someone like a Ponzinibbio or Barberena or like a Robbie Lawler or a well-known name in general is definitely the way to go for me. We have Jack Della Maddalena, who's another guy who is 2 up-and-coming fighters as well. I think we give him a good test and then challenge him with the 2 up-and-coming fighters. So that would be, my pick would probably be, who did I pick first? There's so many names.
I wouldn't mind seeing him like Reese McKee fought, like an Alex Morono next or someone like that.
Yeah, Alex Morono, I feel, would be the ultimate test. That's the fight you want to be bringing to Dublin in 2025, I believe. I thought we might get a UFC event next year or 2024.
It's 2025. Oh yeah,
no, 2024. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself already. I would thought UFC might have came in 2023. Doesn't look like it now, but if they do, I think you're trying to tune up Ian Gary and get him the wins and get him prepared to headline that event in Dublin, where you're giving him a test like Alex.
And he
Morono.
seems to have no interest in fighting in London. He did an Instagram live there earlier on today, and I just happened to click into it, and he was saying that he wants to fight in March, but that he doesn't want to fight in the London card. He's like, I'm not British, I don't want to fight in the London card. So he's sticking to those guns. And as Chris said, for me, it's more like I want to see him active. I was a little bit concerned, I suppose, when I saw that he was saying he hadn't, was it 4 months or so? I can't remember the exact amount of time, but he hadn't been training a bunch, and obviously he'd been in the UK, but he was kind of talking on that thing earlier on where he was saying, look, we're having a baby. So right now we're having the baby in the UK. So I'm getting training in with Liam Harrison and the guys in Next Gen or Renegade. But he's heading back over in January to Sanford. So it sounds like he's going back to Sanford, and that'll be, that'll be the crack moving forward.
At the end of the day, we have to remember he picked up that win not too long ago against Gabe Green as well. Plus, he's under 25 as well. So taking 6 months off to kind of get yourself outside of your
March sounds
business.
Perfect though, but if you've taken a bit of time after your training to just get back in and get the fitness levels up and have a proper camp going in.
100%. It'd be very exciting to see how he gets on, amongst other fighters as well. Obviously, we mentioned, you mentioned in the past, a lot of outstanding amateurs this year as well, Quilchat. We have our awards coming out soon, and Jesus, it was a hotbed of talent trying to decide who was going to be the amateur winner. We have Cian McCartan, Gary Rooney, who was on with us, Keith Kyo, Conor McCarthy,
Jordan Bradshaw, he's the most active amateur in Ireland this year.
Absolutely, all of those guys.
Incredible.
Maybe give
Nadine
Bissett, Nadine as well.
Jamie, they have a Bissets in general. It's the two of them. Yeah. Come on.
Go no, that's what I was going to say. Give us your 2 cents on maybe the Irish talent that we've seen in 2022 at the amateur scene.
Honestly, this is, in my opinion, the breakout year for the amateur scene in Ireland, because you see lads who are competing both internationally, not only at IMAFs. Obviously, I have the affiliation there, so it's good to see them there. They get different looks, but you have them going to different. You can go over to the UK. Look at Gary, for example. He was off there competing against lads in Shock and on a few of them, and then you've them competing on the region scene as well against each other. So it's like they're staying active. They're not there protecting records or worrying about that. They just want to fight, and that's all they're doing. They're getting the experience in, and they're racking up as much experience as they can. I think I was doing some stats on kind of how many fights some of them had this year, and the activity this year compared to others on the region scene and the international scene. It's just absolutely sensational, and it's only going to do wonders for this, for the sport, because that's what, as they start progressing and start transitioning to pro, it's going to be incredible. And obviously the shows contribute to that, but a few individual performances, people have stood out in particular. Obviously we mentioned a few there. Obviously the Jordan Bradshaws, Keith Kyo, Gary Rooney, Ava Bissett, the two of them. Max Lally obviously just come back. One that we cannot forget.
Good year in the UK as well, I think.
Dom Norcus has been one of the breakout stars this year. Senan Coakley, another one. Conor McCarthy. The list goes on and on. It's incredible. We've so much to be excited about. There's a new wave coming in a few years when these lads turn pro, and I'm all here for it because
But there's also a level. There's also a level I think that exists right now. You know, going back to what you're saying, when we're watching some of these amateur fights in comparison to maybe some of the fights we've seen in the past, but that's the evolution of mixed martial arts as well. But the level of, like, there's amateur fights that are happening and they're just as good quality as a lot of pro fights you'd see, sometimes even at the highest level. So it's really exciting for me to see these fighters develop in, and like Wheelchair said, like, we have that new wave that's coming, and as more talent progresses and more people get successful, you know, those waves hopefully will stay coming and stay coming and stay coming, and hopefully that'll be backed up by the regulation of the sport in the country as well, and giving these guys the best possible platform at amateur level to kind of move over to the professional ranks as well. Andy, I know you like to come in there and say something.
No, I was kind of getting distracted by the notes I have in front of me, and I was like, there's just so much that has happened in the year that you kind of forget. Like,
talking about a couple of, like,
Dean Barry got signed, fought, and got cut from the UFC in the space of the year.
It's crazy,
forgot about that. Will Fleury, Nate Kelly, both fighting in PFL. Like, there's just loads of stuff that's been going on. Danny McCormick kind of bouncing back in Invicta, having a great performance. Like,
I think it was fantastic to see Danny, like, from, you know, a person who always wears her heart on her sleeve, always gives an honest interview, and we appreciated that interview that she done with us on the Auld Triangle earlier on this year. But, you know, to go from an undefeated fighter to suffering a really disappointing loss and getting knocked out, and that being new, to come over the hurdles and the mental battles that you have to do when you get knocked out like that, and then to come in and to perform the way she performed in her Invicta debut was just really great to see. And it was brilliant to see Danny kind of finish off the year on a positive note like that, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and like we heard Sinead and Nadine, you know, talk about different things. But like, Nadine's coming off a loss, Sinead's coming off that injury. Like, the mental side of MMA, it fucked. Like, I've never experienced it, but like, from talking to fighters, it fucks with your head. Like, I mean, for Danny to come back from those losses, and like, she told us she was really struggling to deal with them, and then to come back and have a performance that is great. Similarly, you know, earlier on in the year, Brian Moore was talking about, you know, the basically going through the worst mental period of his life, and to see how he's kind of turned that around mentally, and how that's transitioned over into his fighting as well.
To putting on a clinic there as well. Like, I mean, that's just the epitome of coming over those mental hurdles, when you can get to those lows and then to be revered over performance, which he massively deserved as well, both in 100%. Wins and in losses. And, you know, I was unlucky earlier on in the year not to get that against Lugo, but no, it's fantastic to see. Like, and it's great. It means more. You know, we're supposed to be, you know, down the line and call it down the middle, but we'd all be lying if it said it didn't.
We're all human.
More. Yeah, it'd be like, we'd all be lying if we said it didn't mean more to see Irish fighters being successful, because that's what we want to see. You know what I mean? We're proud Irish people ourselves, and, you know, we kind of, it's great to be in a position, you know, to give them the platform to talk about it, and to share the journey with a lot of these fighters as well, through the ups and through the downs.
Of course, there's a reason why there's a reason why we do this, is because we enjoy it. We enjoy watching the Irish fighters. We enjoy the Irish scene, and we want to see them all successful. It's just, unfortunately, you have to give your opinion on the flip side sometimes, which isn't fun for anyone.
I know, not that fun for us as well. Maybe talk about, you have a couple of more comeback fighters as well, Andy.
Like, I feel like the comeback fight, like, some fighters don't really get the shine, maybe whether it's the opponents or, you know, they've gone through a rough period in their career, but they may not get the same shine as someone who's like really surging high. But some people have had some brilliant comebacks, like Cian Cowley. You know, to come back from his career was in the gutter to an extent, and he's gotten 3 finishes back to back. Martins and Bala, I did not see this coming. Going 4-1 in 2022. He started the year with was it that comeback versus Yankov, and then he had the crazy head kick knockout soon after that, and he's you know, he's kickstarted his career again after that, and he now has a positive winning record, which is great. Like, you know, it's great to see fighters come up back like that again. Leon Hill, he had lost his pro debut, wasn't it, on Cage Warriors. He's been fighting on the regional scene, and look, I think he's been levels above his opponents, to be honest with you. And actually, we can get some breaking news on this episode of the Auld Triangle, because Leon Hill has just signed a multi-fight contract with Cage Warriors.
Excellent.
I didn't get a chance to report it earlier on today. But yeah, so he's signed a multi-fight deal with Cage Warriors. The promotion confirmed with me earlier on today. So yeah, so that's great. So we'll see Leon Hill in 2023 fighting in Cage Warriors after a phenomenal, a great year for him, 4-0, all finishes. And then also one, I probably should have said that for last, as we're breaking the news, but Stephen Costello, 3-0 as well, all under the Centurion FC banner. So guys kind of flying under the radar a bit more, but having brilliant years and should be spotlighted as well. Andreas Binder's another one who didn't go undefeated, but he's kind of had a back and forth year. But I thought he did some great things. He had that crazy KO, not crazy KO, but like he had a lovely KO.
It was a great KO. It was a brilliant performance.
Brilliant, beautiful shot. Obviously lost the fight after that, and then rebounded again with the win. So loads, and there's so many other fighters that
Omran Shaban as well had a fantastic year and just really impressive performances. 2-0, 2 finishes in Cage Warriors. And I mean, however excited that we are about 2023 too, we have plenty to be fucking excited about for 2023 as well. And I can't wait to kind of get in and get tucked into the action again. We're going to take probably a week off or 2 weeks off now before we come back again, and we'll be back with the latest episode and the first Auld Triangle episode of 2023 in around, when did we say? Around January?
Yeah, sometime
mid-January.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You don't call us, we'll call you.
To be decided. But maybe to round it off, lads, it's been deadly to be able to come in on here every couple of weeks and talk Irish MMA. To go on with the 2Es, like there's no two other fellas I prefer to be doing it with. You've done some great work this year. Andy Underground, Quilcha Underground with the amateur and the professional. And, it's been a real great year for the 2E lads. And it's been a great year for the podcast as well. Personally as well. I'm delighted to be able to come here and chat. Look, it kills me. It kills me not to be able to be over there in Ireland and going to the regional shows and getting in and to visit the gyms. But look, I'm doing the best that I can to cover Irish MMA from afar. And we'll continue to try and grow this podcast. I think it's been a very, very successful year. We're delighted the way things have worked out for us. I didn't even know what to expect when we started this podcast. All I knew is I wanted somebody to talk Irish MMA with, and there's no better two lads than yourself, Andy and Quilcha. So I appreciate all the work that you put in on the podcast, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes in 2023. It's
been fun.
Yeah,
and back, hasn't it?
And I mean, thanks to everybody who's supported us, who's listened to the podcast, who has shared the podcast. Thanks to everyone who's come on and spoken with us. We really appreciate it. Thanks to Paul. Paul has always been a great supporter of us and One Hit as well. We really appreciate all the support from everybody.
He's a good lad, as Paul.
We're going to continue doing this into 2023 and hopefully for many years again after that. From myself, from Andy, and from Quilcha, we do wish you all a very happy new year. We hope 2023 is everything that you hope for. And
thank you for listening. Thanks to the fighters as well for coming on, and coaches and everyone, all the guests we've had on. It's been very much appreciated, and it's been brilliant. I've enjoyed myself thoroughly. Ian's been a brilliant host. I only interrupt him every 2 seconds, but that's
no, it's all good. It's all good. That's the part. That's the beauty of us generating the kind of relationship that we have. On and off the podcast. It's been great to get to know you and to call you friends now, not more so than anything else. That's what you are. We're all here. We're all developing our chemistry and our relationship and learning.
Ian almost murdered me earlier on though because I posted the wrong graphic.
Look, you know what I mean? Now it's like 3 or 4. It's like,
see, I got just throw you under the bus there.
Well, look,
Happy New Year.
Why you're looking at 3 or 4 different thumbnails, lads, is because Andy couldn't make up his mind on which one that he wanted to post. So his inability to stick to the script is something that we're all going to have to live with as we go along down through the years. But I wouldn't change it for the world. Thanks very much, lads. We're going to leave it there. 2.5 hours. The year in review is done for this year. We'll try to do the same again next year. Like I said, If you like what you hear, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, follow us on all social media platforms. Thanks to Sean and Graham and Severe MMA as well for giving us the platform on YouTube and giving us the help and the support to get this podcast off the ground as well. We do appreciate it. And we shall leave it there for 2022. And we'll be back, like I said, mid-January in 2023 to kick off next year's Auld Triangle. Cuilcha, see us out, my friend.
Nola chuna, Aflin Vivashi Díomh Galer, agus Mars Gana, Slán go fóill.
That was the best one all year.
Beautiful.